Dragon Tamer. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76. Company review tomorrow. I'm taking a day off today, and I owe you an update. Fengsha has a company review tomorrow morning at 9 AM. He's the one being reviewed. Fengsha wants to take tonight off to revise the report and familiarize himself with the review draft. I owe Hesp, Yuha, and Wudijiwang an update today, but I'll make it up tomorrow. I hope these three and all the other brothers will understand. Thank you all. Chapter 77. Purple Corpse Demon, Bloody Battle on Moonlit Night, Part 2. Jeshengnan, Miao Fengji, follow me. The rest of you stay behind. Stay alert. Liu Ming only selected these two individuals, who possessed monarch level magic seals, and possessed the strongest combat awareness and the highest survival and self-preservation abilities, to follow him. He left the gargoyle with the motorcade. After all, the cramped space on the top floor of the building made it difficult for the gargoyle to even gain airborne control, let alone launch a flexible and varied attack. Going up there would simply be a sitting duck for those incredibly fast tentacles. It would be better to stay with the motorcade to prevent monster attacks. Jizerang. Crack, crack, crack. With the sound of massive force breaking free, the dragon salamander's thick, dark yellow back slowly emerged from the ground. Then, its massive monstrous body pushed through chunks of concrete and emerged from the ground. Sumi, bring the cats. Although there were only 3 of them, including Liu Ming, the 2 dragon pets and a swarm of giant cats behind them seemed to outnumber the hundreds of people remaining in the motorcade. The 2 best friends, following Liu Ming, and the swarm of ferocious beasts, surged towards the rooftops. Aside from the dragon salamander's enormous size making it difficult to navigate the narrow escape passage, the journey was relatively smooth. After finally crushing several walls and nearly collapsing the corridor, Jizerang, under Liu Ming's command, simply took the escalator in the center of the mall and leaped straight to the rooftop, leaping 1 floor at a time. He was surprisingly faster than everyone else. By the time Liu Ming and his 2 companions reached the rooftop, Jizerang was already facing several thick, blood-red tentacles at the entrance of a large arcade. As the crimson tentacles danced, Jizerang let out a deep roar. Streams of turbid sand spurted from its sturdy nostrils, sending a hail of dust swirling across the ground. From the City Heroes arcade, which occupied nearly a third of the building's top floor, a series of loud booms erupted. This must be the lair of the Purple Vine Corpse Demon's true form. Gone weeks and should still be inside, Liu Ming wondered, observing the arcade's dim, flickering lights. Sumi, breathe. Liu Ming shouted as he saw several hideous crimson tentacles dancing toward the crowd at the entrance of the arcade. A purple light flashed from Sumi's mouth, and a dark purple flame tornado, swelling with terrifying heat, shot straight at the tentacles. The crimson tentacles, as if they had eyes, dodged the incoming purple flames with the agility of a giant python. However, some of the tentacles were still struck by the thick pillars of fire, catching a few small wisps of dark purple flame. The areas touched by the purple flames instantly blazed like gasoline on sparks, causing the tentacles to let out terrifying, shrill screams. As the tentacles screamed shrilly, they twisted the burning parts like hemp ropes, attempting to break off their limbs and prevent the purple flames from spreading. Sumi, tear with your phantom claws. Jizerang, pounce and tear them apart. Seeing several tentacles still trying to sever their limbs to survive, Liu Ming couldn't let them do that. Sumi transformed into a flash of purple lightning, instantly appearing before the tentacles, overwhelmed by the purple flames. Crossing claw marks flashed with sharp cold light, landing heavily on 3 tentacles. Bang! 3 blood-red tentacles, nearly 10 meters long and as thick as a man and a half's arms, fell to the ground. Once on the ground, they twitched wildly like giant pythons, shattering countless tiles. Jizerang's attack arrived only after Sumi's success. Like a giant beast engaged in a brutal fight, his thick claws slammed into each tentacle, tearing it to shreds. The crimson jelly-like substance within the tentacles splattered all over him. In a flash, only 2 tentacles, still blazing with purple flames, remained at the entrance of the arcade. The burning tentacles, already broken, lay limp on the ground, gradually crumbling into embers in the flames. The remaining tentacles retreated in a panic, retreating towards the arcade. Sumi, Yingshou. With Liu Ming's command, Sumi vanished from the spot, transforming into a dark purple shadow in the next moment, appearing in front of the tentacles that were about to sprint back into the arcade. 2 more cross-shaped claw marks flashed, instantly shredding the already battered tentacles. The 6 tentacles that had appeared in front of the door ultimately retracted to mere segments less than a meter long. Before anyone could rejoice in the victory, a furious scream erupted from the arcade, and increasingly ferocious blood-red tentacles erupted. 1 tentacle had already transformed from blood red to a dark crimson, its purple markings densely packed, resembling a single, terrifying, purple tentacle. Finally, the real deal. Liu Ming's eyes sharpened, and he drew his Jufeng, crouching slightly like a cheetah, ready to pounce. The purple vine corpse demon's name derives from the dense purple patterns covering its tentacles. As these patterns gradually cover its entire tentacle, they unleash an extremely terrifying and eerie power. Roar. Ji Zerong roared in rage. Before the attacking purple tentacle could even make contact, Ji Zerong, as if by a mysterious force that ignored the surface of the skin and acted directly on the bloodstream, drained large globs of blood from its body. Dark red blood beads rapidly oozed from the dragon salamander's body, but they did not stick to the skin. Instead, they were lifted into the air by an invisible force. As the blood beads coalesced into a blood clot in midair, the purple tentacle let out a greedy cry, its tip eagerly reaching into the blood clot and absorbing the entire mass. Then, a flash of blood flashed from the tentacle, and an even more greedy scream echoed as it lunged towards Ji Zerong. Seeing this, Ji Zerong roared in anger, and his entire body was instantly covered in suspended mud and rock, his head hitting the ceiling, transforming into a terrifying rock monster. This time, the tentacle struck the dragon salamander's trunk, but failed to extract even a drop of blood. Instead, Ji Zerong's claws ripped through its skin. Having returned empty-handed, the tentacle abandoned its attack on the dragon salamander and the seemingly formidable Sumi, instead attacking Liu Ming and the other 2 and the giant cats. A grey giant cat was the first to suffer, its blood instantly drained by a mysterious force, transforming it into a shrunken corpse. The tentacles, brimming with fresh blood, grew intoxicated, their skin, torn by Ji Zerong's rips, healing in an instant as they attacked Liu Ming and the other 2 with even greater ferocity. Ji Zerong and Sumi were each attacked by several weaker tentacles, leaving only the giant cat standing in Liu Ming's way. Use the power of the magic seal to resist that mysterious suction. Liu Ming instructed his 2 friends, then drew his sword and slashed at the purple tentacles. He knew full well that the mysterious suction was the uncanny ability of the incredibly disgusting purple vine corpse demon to control flesh and blood. The initial stage of this ability, known as blood control, allows it to drain the blood of living beings. At higher levels, the purple vine corpse demon can even control flesh and blood. Under this power, any living being without resistance will have their entire flesh and blood instantly stripped away, with a power comparable to the infamous flesh removal spell. In his later life, he had personally witnessed a pitiful creature being stripped of its flesh and blood by a corpse demon, reduced to nothing but skin and bones. The corpse demon before him certainly didn't possess such terrifying abilities. Blood control was its limit. Furthermore, if someone, like Ji Zerong, consciously resisted the strange power of blood control during his full strength outburst, it would no longer be able to suck Ji Zerong's blood. Lava Heart. Liu Ming's absolute blade was the first to be engulfed by dark red molten lava, which continuously flowed from the palm of his left hand and spread throughout his body. Finally, before the purple tentacles clashed, it had enveloped him completely. Liu Ming's entire clothing, save for his flying shoes and silver scale light armor, was reduced to ash by the intense heat of the lava. Blazing like a molten fireman, Liu Ming swung his Jufeng sword, slashing the tentacle's tip with a single blow. The purple pattern was clearly powerless against Liu Ming, who was engulfed in the molten lava. Even if it could absorb a tiny bit of blood, it would be evaporated by the intense heat as it seeped through his skin and passed through the molten lava. After the molten lava encased Chu Feng's strike, the tentacle suddenly retracted. The wound at the end withered under the intense heat, like a plant licked by flames, and even the purple pattern had turned slightly charred. P.S. The judging is finally over, and Feng Shi's raise is probably off the table, but Xiao Ming's story continues. Here's the first update, with 2 more to come. Please vote, reward, and support. Chapter 78 Blood Nest, Sandstorm Soul. Molten lava dripped from the blade of the absolute blade, splashing onto the ground in a sizzling, nearly 1000 degree scalding liquid. Liu Ming, save for his luminous jet black eyes, was completely engulfed in the molten lava. However, he acted oblivious to the heat, continuing to strike the tentacle with forceful force. The purple tentacle, frustrated once again, immediately abandoned its attack. Like a hedgehog, Liu Ming not only couldn't eat him, but even touching him would injure him. Of course, Liu Ming's hedgehog spines were molten lava. Liu Ming made a tentative cut, finding it difficult to injure him with its strange attacks. Without further ado, his attacks intensified, unwilling to let it escape. But the tentacle had already struck at the numerous giant cats, its speed far exceeding his reach. As Liu Ming pursued, several more cats were instantly reduced to bloodless, mummified corpses. The giant cat's corpse was swept up by the purple tentacles, used as a weapon, and hurled down upon Liu Ming. Liu Ming, unwilling to dismember himself, rather, his cat's body, he didn't wield his sword to block, but instead tried his best to evade them. Sumi, who was simultaneously fending off the attacks of 7 or 8 tentacles, was enraged by this sight. With a flick of his veil, he shook off the blood-red tentacles that were attacking him, instantly catching up with the purple tentacles and blasting them with a breath of dark flame. The purple tentacles, burned by the flames, danced wildly, emitting a series of terrifying screams. Liu Ming seized the opportunity, quickly dodging the tentacles' random, aimless twitches and dashing towards them. He lifted his heels and leaped high, unleashing his invincible and killing growth abilities simultaneously. He raised his sword high and slashed down, severing the 6 or 7 meter long tentacle, the thickness of a man's arms, to the ground. Sumi also swiftly rushed towards the tentacle, which suddenly receded after being severed. A cross-shaped claw mark flashed, and another 8 or 9 meter long tentacle landed on the ground. By this time, hundreds of giant cats had completely engaged the remaining dozen or so purple tentacles. In a one-on-one fight, the giant cats might not have been a match for the tentacles, but when their numbers swelled to several or even 10, the tentacles were eventually bitten and bruised, retreating back into their bodies. With the monsters no longer blocking their path, Liu Ming finally entered the arcade. A massive structure resembling a honeycomb appeared before the 3 of them. The hive was a blood-red, pitted heart. From this heart, tentacles, like blood vessels, extended like dense vines, filling the entire arcade. Each vine was covered in giant tumors, like gourd vines. At least 1,000 of these tumors clung to the arcade, covering thousands of square meters. Liu Ming knew without a doubt that the missing survivors had been captured and held captive by the purple vine corpse demon. Not far from Liu Ming, a familiar figure wielded a broken iron ruler, unleashing sharp sword energy. Waves of white air whipped up, slashing at the relentlessly advancing blood-red tentacles. Most astonishingly, each sword energy pierced the tentacle's swift, ghostly speed. Gong weeks in. Though the woman's white tracksuit had been stained a dark crimson, Liu Ming still recognized her face. Her ponytail had fallen, leaving each strand of her black hair a crimson, as if soaked in blood. Though her hair was disheveled, and her face was stained with blood, the few patches of her still white skin and alluring features still revealed a glimpse of her freshly groomed, charming features. Her face was filled with murderous intent, like a female warrior steeped in blood, imbued with a blood-stained air of heroism and grace. Zheirang. DCI. Liu Ming roared, pointing in the direction of the blood-red nest. The weakness of tentacle and vine-like monsters like the purple vine corpse demon lies in their frail bodies. Once their main bodies are destroyed, their terrifying tentacles become as threatening as weapons without their owners. Zheirang's earth spears and rock spikes are the perfect attack method for dealing with the corpse demon's main body at this moment. Judging from the size of the giant nest, the purple vine corpse demon likely hasn't evolved to the B level yet, but rather to the extreme C level. The crystal rock spikes are likely to penetrate its defenses. Sure enough, over 10-meter long spikes suddenly burst forth from beneath the floorboards, piercing directly into the giant nest. A shrill human-like scream echoed from the giant nest, and streams of a blood-like liquid flowed from the areas struck by the spikes. Hiss. A violent, unnatural roar echoed throughout the arcade, and everyone could sense the roar of the giant nest after being wounded. Countless tentacles surged towards Liu Ming and his group, most of them heading straight for Zhenrong, the instigator of the giant nest's attack. Among them were nearly 10 extremely formidable purple tentacles. Even a dragon salamander in its rock armor would be severely injured if struck by so many. Just as Liu Ming was about to tell it to dodge, Zhenrong unceremoniously dove, crashing through the floor and leaping off the stairs. Having lost their target, the tentacles all turned to attack the others. What a coward. Liu Ming cursed inwardly, then he could only lead Sumi forward to block the overwhelming number of tentacles. Otherwise, the two people and the cats behind him would surely suffer heavy casualties in this wave of attacks. At that moment, a massive figure seemingly composed entirely of sand and stone suddenly appeared, blocking the way. Despite being struck by countless tentacles, it didn't retreat even a bit, until it was shattered into a cloud of dust. Zhenrong followed closely behind, blocking the already dwindling tentacles. Zhenrong? What was that just now? Liu Ming asked inwardly, a glint in his eyes. He had a vague feeling that the huge sand and stone figure was related to Zhenrong. Master, it's the sandstorm soul, Zhenrong replied, while blocking the attack. His voice was still incredibly honest, but it didn't match his cunning behavior at all. It didn't take much effort for Zhenrong to block the remaining tentacle attacks. After all, the powerful purple tentacles had already struck the giant sand and stone figure. Liu Ming then remembered an ability his dragon pet had never used before, the Sandstorm Soul. His insight revealed information about this ability. Sandstorm Soul, the ability to materialize the principles of the earth element at a high level, with a certain chance of transforming the souls of powerful creatures into sandstorm souls. As long as the sandstorm soul's owner survives, the sandstorm soul will also live forever. Wherever there is earth and stone, the power of the sandstorm will never cease. Is it the lava fiery hound soul, a ready-made sandstorm soul? Liu Ming continued, slashing away an incoming tentacle. He had just felt that the figure, even larger than Zhenrong, looked familiar, though compared to the dark red lava skin fiery dog, this one was a khaki hue. Yes, master. When that giant dog died, I subconsciously absorbed something into my body. I only just discovered I could summon it. Zhenrong and Liu Ming used telepathy and communication to help Liu Ming understand the situation. Zhenrong was truly lucky. The sandstorm soul he had fortuitously acquired not only possessed immortality, but also, regardless of its attack power, proved to possess defenses approaching those of a C-class giant creature. It was no wonder, then, that the lava fiery dog was one of the more powerful C-class creatures in life, and its spirit after death was certainly no less powerful. When numerous tentacles attacked Liu Ming, and Zhenrong, gone weeks in, still struggling, felt a sudden relief. She unexpectedly seized the opportunity, breaching the defenses of over 10 tentacles in quick succession, and was now less than 60 meters from the already battered corpse demon's main body, the bloody nest. If she weren't afraid of injuring any survivors still surviving amid the densely packed tumors, she could have unleashed her sword energy to directly damage the monster's core. Sumi, follow me. Liu Ming watched the woman approach the nest with a determined look on her face, and rushed forward with Sumi. He was certain that, if she took a few more steps forward, all the tentacles attacking her would retreat to protect the main body. Under such an onslaught, that foolish woman would undoubtedly perish. No matter how powerful her sword energy was, she was only mortal, after all. P.S. Here's a second update, paying off the extra update I owed to Hesp, Juha, and Woody Juan yesterday. The third update will follow later. It's over, brothers. Please recommend, reward, and support. Chapter 79 Demon Soul Purple Flower, Corpse Soul Blood Marrow. Swoosh. When Gong Weeksin was only 50 meters from the giant blood nest, the tentacles attacking the cats, Jizering, and the two women retreated back into their bodies with a frantic thud. If all of them were allowed to retreat, Liu Ming, Gong Weeksin, and Sumi would face a siege of nearly 200 tentacles. Even the reappearance of the sandstorm spirit would be no match for them. Jizering, though timid, was still reliable in crucial moments. Seeing the tentacles trying to escape, he pounced with all four claws, grabbing a handful, his jaws firmly clamped around several, and his massive body clamped down on a handful. He comically held dozens of tentacles back. By then, Jie Shengnan and Miao Fengji realized they couldn't let these tentacles go. A topless barbarian figure, holding a massive crude stone axe, and a figure with ethereal long hair wielding a sword blocked a dozen tentacles. Hundreds of giant cats combined to block dozens of tentacles. But in the end, dozens, nearly 100, still lashed out at the two men and the beast. Liu Ming had previously discovered that his explosive power, enhanced by the lava heart, had increased considerably, barely enough to keep up with the incredibly fast tentacles. As the tentacles attacked, he leaped as if his feet had activated thrusters, dodging several of the incoming tentacles. But several more burst through the air. With no escape, Liu Ming spun with all his might, tumbling through the air like a ball, and wielded his absolute blade into an impenetrable circle of light. Tentacles that came into contact with the circle were instantly wounded, as if they had been slashed. This move would become one of Liu Ming's later unique skills, a skill not uncommonly mastered by many, the wind wheel blade technique. Later memories revealed that to master this wind wheel blade technique, he underwent a great deal of self-torture, including numerous falls from the air, that resulted in several broken ribs. There were noticeably more tentacles attacking Sumi and Gong Weeksin, and each of them responded with different methods. The tentacles attacking Sumi were like chasing a bolt of lightning. Catching up, even seeing their form, was impossible. Purple phantoms shattered like bubbles under the whipping of the tentacles, but the attacks were still so far away from Sumi's true form that they seemed unreachable. Gong Weeksin, on the other hand, was like a peerless sword imbued with sword energy. Though she held only a half-broken, unsharpened iron sword, her combat power was so formidable that even Liu Ming, who had temporarily avoided the attacks, was taken aback. She marched forward, step by step, never looking back. Any tentacle that struck her from behind was shattered by the invisible sword energy surrounding her, forcing them to retreat, dragging their broken limbs. As expected of Gong Zhuju, Liu Ming marveled inwardly. He admired the name Gong Zhuju more than Gong Weeksin. It must be said that some people are truly gifted to achieve this level of skill solely through a second awakening in just 1 week during the apocalypse. Their talent and potential are truly astonishing. As they continuously broke through the tentacle defenses and drew closer to the giant nest, the tentacles' attacks grew more ferocious and violent. However, Gong Weeksin, whose sword defenses, aside from the purple tentacles, were difficult for ordinary tentacles to penetrate and injure, drew the bulk of the firepower, withstanding nearly half the attacks. The two men and the beast quickly arrived at the giant blood nest, where the corpse demon's main body lay. Upon reaching the nest, a thick, bloody odor overwhelmed them, a nauseating stench like that of a slaughterhouse that hadn't been cleaned for years. Liu Ming raised his molten-coated longsword and, without a word, plunged it into the giant blood nest, activating his killing growth ability to frantically absorb the nest's vitality. Each life-sucking breath was accompanied by the giant nest's shrill cries. Every tentacle's attack was firmly blocked by Gong Weeksin and Sumi, but both man and beast were repeatedly wounded. After nearly 5 minutes of sucking, man and beast finally reached their limit, their bodies covered in wounds. Gong Weeksin, in particular, was shaky, and there was a fear that she would fall to the tentacles at any moment. Liu Ming quickly summoned the guardian spirit, Kamingwen, to assist the man and beast with the light of tranquility, which was more than enough to heal their injuries and restore their strength. By the 6th minute, Ju Feng was already feeling full, and the giant nest finally couldn't bear it anymore, letting out a head-splitting, frantic scream. Liu Ming quickly covered his ears, but he was still dizzy and dazed. It was thanks to his strong physical strength that he withstood the sonic attack. Afar, Miao Fengji was bleeding from his mouth and nose amid the screams, nearly fainting and going into shock. Ji Zhenirong, Earth Spike. Seeing that not only the 4 of them were affected, but even the giant cats were falling one by one under the seemingly endless sonic assault, Liu Ming telepathically commanded. Bang! The massive earth spike pierced the already bloody bottom of the blood nest, widening the already torn gaping wound. Blood gushed out and flowed all over the ground. Liu Ming sacrificed himself and rammed the blood nest, causing it to tilt slightly, revealing several hideous wounds at the bottom that were nearly large enough for a person to penetrate. Sumi, breathe with all your strength, he shouted at Sumi. Sumi's mouth suddenly expanded, filling with a rich purple light. A burning sensation instantly filled the surrounding air. Boom. Streams of dark purple flames erupted from Sumi's mouth, suddenly thickening. The purple flames continuously poured into her body from the gap in the blood nest, then shot up from the top of the nest like a towering pillar of fire, reaching the sky. The blood nest was instantly engulfed in blazing purple flames. All the tentacles still lashing out at the crowd abruptly ceased their attacks, as if strangled by an invisible force. 200 terrifying, python-like tentacles uttered a shrill, agonizing scream before twisting and falling to the ground, each one fading into death. Hurry, cut down those tumor-ridden tentacles, or the fire will spread and burn everyone inside to a crisp, Liu Ming shouted, teeth clenched. Having just thrown himself into the attack, he had completely given up on resisting the attack and was lashed in the back and thighs by several tentacles as thick as an adult's waist, causing him to vomit blood in agony. Hearing this, Sumi quickly led his giant cats to swoop down on the tentacles still dangling in midair, wielding their sharp claws to sever them from the giant nest. As the giant nest crumbled into a pile of charred ash in the purple flames, Liu Ming limped and pulled out 2 large solid crystals from the embers. One was purple red, as translucent as jade. The other was dark red, as deep as amber. Liu Ming's eyes flickered with joy as he recalled the names and functions of the 2 crystals from his memory. The purple crystal, Demon Soul Purple Flower, a treasure that enhances mental power. It's the brain core of a purple creeper corpse demon, containing a miraculous substance that has detoxifying and healing properties against its toxins. It has similar effects to a Lord Brain Core, while currently more potent and precious. Once all these Lord mutants have matured, the purple creeper corpse demon, whose highest life form is only at the 3rd SSS level, will be far inferior to it. Of course, its future renown as a treasure lies beyond its mere mental enhancement. Its true value stems from its vast reservoir of pure spiritual matter and spiritual energy, which serve as the ultimate nutrient and catalyst for the growth and evolution of spiritual beings. Liu Ming wondered to what extent this head-sized demon soul purple flower could elevate his guardian hero, came and when. As for the red crystal, called corpse soul blood marrow, it's equivalent to the heart core of the purple corpse demon, and while its value is relatively small, it also contains an astonishing concentration of flesh and blood essence, useful for crafting gargoyles, or for further growth and evolution of the bloodthirsty sawtooth vines. P.S. Here's the 3rd update. It's late, but thankfully I've kept my promise. This update is made possible thanks to the donations from my 3 brothers, King Ji, DDR Zimeng Xixiang, and Ghost Feng Dao. Sweet dreams. Chapter 80 Natural Crown. He can't go up. Mr. Liu, can they be saved? Opening up the tumors one by one, Gong Weekson anxiously addressed Liu Ming, who was still observing the purple flower and blood marrow. She had already wiped the blood from Gong Weekson's face, but her charming features were now utterly pale, a trace of panic etched in her expression. The fear for the lives of thousands of people seemed even more terrifying than the lone battle against the terrifying purple vine corpse demon. Liu Ming shifted his gaze from the 2 head-sized crystals in his hands and glanced in Gong Weekson's direction. Don't worry, they're just unconscious from the poison, he replied calmly. There was one more thing he left unsaid. This poison was currently only detoxifiable by his demon soul purple flower. Even if he could detoxify each of these thousands, even a drop would require 1/10 of his purple flower crystal marrow. How could he avoid the pain? How do we detoxify them? Gong Weekson breathed a sigh of relief and looked at Liu Ming with a look of surprise and anticipation. Liu Ming had already guessed she'd ask him. If he told her the method, but didn't give her the purple hua, she'd probably just grab it. But he felt bad about using the purple hua for these ordinary people. He couldn't understand why this foolish woman cared so much about these ordinary people. He ignored her, simply taking out a blood potion and tossing it at Gongweeksin. He then called over the heroic spirit, who was radiating the light of tranquility to everyone. He used the tip of his knife to pierce the demon soul purple Hua crystal and said, "Kemenwen, take it. Remember to save just a little bit at the end." Liu Ming ultimately decided to let Kemenwen use it first. The remaining purple Hua would only save as many people as he could, since they weren't his own people anyway. There were definitely some who weren't even Gongweeksin's people, just the unfortunate souls abducted by the corpse demons to suck their blood. Yes, Guardian, the heroic spirit's response still left Liu Ming scratching his head. As the purple crystal essence flowed from the gap into Kemenwen's mouth, the green light surrounding him suddenly became as dazzling as a searchlight transformed from an incandescent bulb. Countless green points of light appeared in the air one after another, pouring into his body like moths to a flame. His form shifted rapidly within the green light. When it faded completely, the heroic spirit reappeared before everyone, a completely different figure. His green hair had turned dark green, and the green light surrounding him had become a series of thorn-like green rings. He emanated astonishing natural energy fluctuations, his body solid and substantial, like a normal human, unlike the ethereal form he had appeared before. Liu Ming's insight revealed that the heroic spirit's energy level had risen from peak E level to peak D level, and in addition to his previous abilities, he had gained another. However, this very ability, as Kemenwen unleashed it, shocked Liu Ming. The previously ineffective and half-deadly light of tranquility showered upon him, healing his wounds with the swiftness of a healing spell. Even his blackened, swollen back and slightly fractured thigh, where the tentacles had struck him, healed at a visible pace. Nature's crown, a mysterious power that materializes the laws of nature at a high level. Nature's crown can be combined with any other nature-based ability, significantly enhancing the combined power by up to tenfold. With this single ability, Kemenwen's impact has increased tenfold. The heroic spirit, previously somewhat useless in battle, has become a pillar of the team. His tranquil light is incomparable to a priest's healing spell, and even more potent, approaching an advanced version of healing. The entire arcade was enveloped in a serene light, and everyone's injuries were rapidly healing, including those previously abducted by the whites to serve as blood corpses. Aside from the over 100 people who were too deeply poisoned to be saved, the remaining people who had consumed the remaining purple crystal essence from the heroic spirit's evolution were rapidly awakening. Liu Ming looked at the awakening people with a lecherous look. He was obsessed with wasting nearly a tenth of the purple crystal essence on these people. Even if the heroic spirit had successfully evolved and was no longer needed, it was still a valuable treasure. Thousands of drops of detoxifying crystal essence combined would have enhanced mental strength almost as effectively as the overlord brain core he had previously consumed. Yet, he didn't use a single drop, while these people benefited from it. His original plan was to save only those with potential, and at most, the members of the search team. There was no need to save everyone. However, he understood the principle of striking while the iron is hot. Though he didn't express it, Liu Ming could sense Gongweeksin's deep gratitude. If she could go the extra mile and save these people, she would be invincible. When they first met, she had never called him Mr. Liu. After thousands of people regained consciousness, Liu Ming declared, "Let's go. Start evacuating." "Mr. Liu, why are you here? Big sister, did you save us?" "Woo, woo, woo. I'm not dead. I thought I was dead after that monster grabbed me and I passed out." After waking up, those who had seen Liu Ming exclaimed in surprise, while others even sobbed softly at having survived. "You're still alive thanks to Mr. Liu. Otherwise, I couldn't have saved you all by myself." Gongweeksin shook her head emphatically, assigning the credit to Liu Ming. "Alright, talk later. If you don't want to die, follow me now." As they led the thousands of people down the building toward the motorcade, Liu Huchuan and Gu Yuan impatiently joined them. "Boss, we could hear the loud noises from upstairs, and those twisting tentacles crashing down from the building. It was so frustrating. If that crocodile monster Gu Yuan hadn't stopped me, I would have gone up to find you," Liu Huchuan complained, somewhat annoyed. "What's wrong with you, sissy? What's the point of you going up there when the boss can't handle the danger? You'll just cause more trouble. The boss told us to stay with the convoy to protect everyone. Do you think you're going to leave these ordinary people, defenseless, on the dangerous roads? Gu Yuan retorted sarcastically. The two men engaged in another verbal battle. You two, take your men and find me a dozen working trucks that can hold 1,000 people. Liu Ming's voice was quiet, but at his command, the two men immediately stopped their quarrel and went looking for vehicles. Within half an hour, buses, trucks, minivans, and light trucks vehicles capable of holding a large number of people approached Liu Ming one after another. Thousands of survivors began to quietly board the vehicles in such an orderly manner that it was hard to believe they were survivors of the apocalypse. In fact, as long as they weren't stuck in that disgusting flesh bag, being drained of blood like a blood pump, they wouldn't refuse anything. When a young woman carrying a little girl of about 3 or 2 years old approached Liu Ming, he gave what he considered a rather kind smile to the girl, nestled in her mother's arms, her head tilted upwards as she looked at him. Thank you, uncle, for saving me and my mom. The little girl, who had met Liu Ming a few days ago, was a little timid, but eventually, as if mustering the courage, she thanked him. Liu Ming's expression, which had been irritating at the group of people who had wasted his zeal, softened a bit. What a lovely little creature. It seems saving these useless people isn't such a big deal. Liu Ming's hardened heart softened, as if something soft had suddenly pried a corner open, and he forced himself to comfort himself. Another old acquaintance approached him. This man was the little girl's father, the strong man who had left a deep impression on him. He can't get in the car. Liu Ming's expression, which had just softened, instantly turned cold again. PS. First update here. Thanks to -886, Hangian Knight X, Tan Mo, Jintelos Guoda, and Su Fengyi for their donations yesterday. In today's third update, the mystery of the protagonist's broken arm will soon be resolved. I'm sure you won't be disappointed. I wonder if Dragon Breeder's recommendations will break 5,000 today. I'm filled with anticipation for a writer who's already failed. Hey guys, let me see your hands. No, your votes. My hands are so funny. Please recommend, reward, and support me. Chapter 81 Searching for the Captain, Smelling the Fish. Someone possessing extraordinary fighting prowess, yet so cowardly as to prefer stealing food from his wife and daughter, rather than risk it, was undoubtedly the proverbial rat, the black sheep that spoils the whole pot. It would have been fine if he hadn't seen him, but if he had, how could Liu Ming have let him join his team? The man's face paled instantly. Not getting on the bus would have meant being abandoned, and he knew what abandonment meant in this monster-infested environment. He knew begging the cold-blooded man with the severed arm was futile. He could only look desperately at their leader, Gong Weeksin, with a pleading expression. Why, Mr. Liu? Gong Weeksin frowned slightly, her tone questioning. Why? Why don't you ask one of your own people? Liu Ming sneered sarcastically. You, tell him why. If you don't tell the truth, neither you nor he will get on the bus, Liu Ming commanded, pointing to a man about to board. He remembered this man as one of the people who had witnessed the strong man stealing food and beating his wife and daughter. The unfortunate man Liu Ming had pointed at came tumbling over in panic. He had watched Liu Ming trample Liu Shan, so he knew exactly what to do. He rattled off a long list of the powerful man's crimes, some of which he even exaggerated. Gong Weeksin flew into a rage, kicking Liu Shan back. Get away. If I see you again, I'll chop off your head myself. Gong Weeksin's face, blood-stained and murderous, was terrifying. You're right. I believe you're a better leader than I am. Shame, guilt, anger, and disbelief crossed her face. Finally, she sighed and boarded a bus, leaving Liu Ming to continue arranging the boarding. I thought it would take a lot of effort, but Jianju, you're so convinced already? Liu Ming muttered in a faint tone, his elation evident to anyone. Gong Weeksin's words implicitly acknowledged Liu Ming's leadership. With this woman's current strength, it would be hard to find a single survivor in all of Wuling City who could stand up to her. When the two dump trucks arrived, they had become a massive convoy of 30 or 40 vehicles filled with survivors. Fortunately, many of the survivors could drive, otherwise, so many vehicles would have been difficult to drive back. Liu Ming breathed a sigh of relief that his base was safe and sound. After all, he had mobilized his entire team this time. If faced with a more serious attack, the remaining men would have been difficult to handle alone. So many people, Marjan and the others, who had climbed down from the tree house at the sound of the vehicles, were shocked. There had been only a few dozen people when they left, but by the time they returned, there were at least 1,000. We just saved them, Liu Ming replied calmly, silencing Marjan's surprise. Marjan was deeply puzzled. Knowing Liu Ming well, how could he possibly just save someone? There had to be another reason. But since Liu Ming wouldn't explain, he didn't ask further. Marjan, please make the arrangements. We, the elderly, the weak, women, and children, will be given priority in the treehouse. Those who can't fit in will have to squeeze into the train ticket waiting area for the night. Junren, take the staff to prepare food for 500 people. Han Piaraksu, Yun Fanghua, and Lin Mimui will lead the team to assist Marjun. The other 5 search team leaders will be on guard. Marjan, once you've made the arrangements, bring the 8 search team leaders, Jeshengnan, Miao Fengji, and Kinyu to see me. Gong Weixin, bring Li Santeo, Yang Fengchen, and Zhao Chen with me. Liu Ming gave all the instructions and headed towards his treehouse villa. Who are these people? The remaining magic seal warrior asked, pulling over an acquaintance who had participated in the rescue. Marjan also approached with curiosity, listening intently. In the living room of the treehouse villa, now that over 1,000 of you have arrived on my territory, I'm sure not everyone is willing. If they are reluctant, I can send them back. You 4 are considered the leaders of this 1,000-strong group. I'd like to ask your opinion, Liu Ming said tentatively, looking at the 4 people before him. Mr. Liu, there's no reason to be reluctant. You saved our lives. Li Santeo smiled dryly. I only know that, if it weren't for you, Mr. Liu, I, Yang Fengchen, would be dead. From now on, I will follow your lead. Yang Fengchen stated bluntly. Even if you didn't save my life today, Mr. Liu, you saved our owner. You are my benefactor, both morally and morally. Repaying a favor is my principle. Zhao Chen's face was equally resolute. Liu Ming nodded and said, Gong Weixin also saved you. Otherwise, I couldn't save you. With the victim right beside him, he couldn't take credit for it. After explaining, he looked at Gong Weixin, who hadn't yet fully expressed her opinion. You don't need to look at me. I know what you want. According to our agreement, I will go to save my family, and then I can join your team. Beneath Gong Weixin's curved brows, her star-like eyes, bright as a spring, could penetrate the heart. Liu Ming chuckled, not embarrassed by having his thoughts exposed. He just cursed this woman inwardly, saying she was truly wicked. It felt like she could see through everything in his heart. After chatting with the 4 of them for a while, Marjan, having settled everyone, walked in with his men. Please take a seat. I've gathered everyone here today to announce a plan. Liu Ming began to explain his thoughts. Before, we only had a few dozen people, so many things were not sorted out. After all, with a small number of people, it was easier to manage. But now, we have over 1,000 people, and most of them are new members. I will distinguish the roles of our team, to avoid a situation where everyone is treated the same, which would lead to unfairness and eventually disunity. We already had a search team system. The 8 search teams will remain the same, and 5 more will be added. The captains will be Jeshengnan, Miao Fengji, Li Santeo, Yang Fengchen, and Zhao Chen. Going forward, I will select strong people or those who volunteer to join the search team to supplement them, ensuring that each search team has at least 20 people. I will be the captain of the search team, and I will have 2 deputy captains, Marjan and Gong Weixin. They will be responsible for safety in my absence. Also, our sundries and logistics will be managed by Kinyu from now on, and he will be separated from the search team. Except for search team members and special personnel like Junren and Kinyu, all ordinary members will receive the minimum supply quota. Ask anything, Liu Ming concluded, looking at the crowd, eager to speak, but unable to because he hadn't stopped yet. It had only been a week since the apocalypse, and already weeds had sprouted from the suburban roads, creating a desolate appearance. These weeds were naturally different from the weeds that grew before the apocalypse. They were all plants that had undergone some mutation under the influence of the chaotic energy, and their vitality was even more tenacious than before. Within 6 months, as far as I could remember, the weeds on the roads were so thick that ordinary cars with low chassis were completely unable to drive. Only modified vehicles with raised chassis could navigate the wilderness roads. On the outskirts of Jialin County, a pickup truck was slowly driving along the road, its speed so slow that it looked less like a survivor fleeing for their lives and more like someone searching for something. Gong Weeksin was concentrating on driving, while Liu Ming sat in the passenger seat, holding the shrunken Sumi. A cloud of dust billowed behind the truck, and within it, it seemed as if a pack of ferocious beasts were running wildly. They were Jizeli Rang and Sumi's men. Some of the monsters attracted by the pickup truck gave way. With the exception of mindless monsters like the cannibal corpse, most monsters had the instinct to seek advantage and avoid harm. That's where I was attacked by that corpse wizard. This time, I'm going to tear him to pieces, Liu Ming said, a stern look in his eyes. Gong Weeksin's cold expression suddenly softened at this, her brows curling slightly, as if she was pleased to hear Liu Ming's defeat. Gong Weeksin had proposed going to rescue her family early that morning. Her home happened to be in Jialin County, and she had been in Wuling to study at Wuling University. The corpse wizard Liu Ming had been longing for, the one who had stolen Frost and severely injured him, was also in Jialin County, so he decided to accompany her. Just as Liu Ming was looking around for the heavy truck, where he had encountered the abominable stitched corpse, a group of dark figures surged onto the road in front of the car. The familiar, piercing cry of a corpse wizard echoed from afar, startling Liu Ming. Glancing far away, he spotted the corpse wizard's mount, the corpse puppet beast, in the shadows. I haven't even found that abominable heavy truck yet, and yet the corpse wizard has found me first. Corpse wizards aren't unintelligent beasts, so while their sounds may resemble animal screams to humans, they're actually the language of the dead. Now I can only determine how they found me from their screams. My telepathic ability could have discerned the meaning, just like how I communicated with that Goring. However, this ability doesn't rely on sound, but rather on information from a kind of telepathic thought. The distance was too great. Although the corpse wizard's voice had reached me, his thoughts, after traveling such a distance, had already been mixed with other chaotic thoughts, making it impossible for me to distinguish them. Kemenwen, what did that corpse wizard say? Liu Ming summoned his guardian heroic spirit. He suddenly felt that the heroic spirit's seemingly useless ability to understand language had its uses. Stop them. Grab the treasure in that tin box. I smell an incredibly strong scent of blood. Consuming it will make me stronger, the handsome old man explained word for word. It was the exact same line he'd used when he tried to steal his frost sword. Liu Ming was puzzled. What blood? Treasure? Turning his head, he saw the blood marrow of a corpse soul lying quietly in the back seat. A gleam in his eyes, and he vaguely guessed what the corpse wizard was talking about. It must have been this unused blood marrow that had been sitting in the car that had done him a great favor. P.S. Here's a second update, an extra update thanks to last week's donations from my brothers, Insomniac Nightcat Garfield, Unafraid of Power's Handsome Man, a natural painter. Thanks to my brothers 99.8 and longtime SKF box purchaser for their support. I'll add an update next week. I'd also like to thank my brother longtime SKF wooden box purchaser for his silent support on questions reading. Finally, I'm begging for recommendations, donations, and support. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82 Scholar Hand, Lich Notes. What's that? Gong Weeksin also spotted the attacking shadows and swerved to avoid them. There's no way around them. They're coming right for us. Stop. Liu Ming watched the attacking corpse wizards and the swarm of undead creatures with a look of excitement. You're actually throwing yourself at us, courting death. I don't know why you crave this blood marrow so much, but I'm afraid it's going to kill you. A glint of fury flashed in his eyes. Even before the car came to a complete stop and was still coasting, he and Sumi opened the door and leaped out. Drawing his sword from his homemade sheath, Liu Ming, leading the swarm of beasts behind him, charged directly at the undead. Although a small number of Sumi's giant cats had perished in the battle with the purple vine corpse demon, Sumi easily recruited hundreds more upon returning to the train station. The undead swarmed the corpse wizards and the horde of ferocious beasts, engaging in a fierce battle. At the forefront was still the massive, terrifying looking D-rank abomination, the stitched corpse. A little behind the abomination, a monster even more captivated Liu Ming's attention, a figure mounted on a massive skeletal warhorse, half the height of man. Even if Liu Ming were blind, he wouldn't have mistaken them for ordinary skeleton cavalry, and certainly not for the terrifying monsters of the undead knights or even higher level death knights. This was likely just an undead cavalry captain, a top tier D-class creature, only slightly weaker than a corpse witch. But for Liu Ming right now, C-class and above were no match for him. What truly caught his attention wasn't the captain's strength, but the fact that he wasn't holding the standard bone spear, but rather the famed frostful sword he had lost and stolen. Zeli Rang led the charge, his body encased in rock, becoming immensely larger. He pounced on two equally massive abominations. The other giant cats attacked the other undead creatures. Sumi stayed by Liu Ming's side, awaiting his orders. The giant cats outnumbered the undead, so the situation remained stalemated for the time being. As the undead cavalry captain began to charge his skeletal warhorse towards the cats, Liu Ming also began to move. He intercepted Sumi, who was charging at the cavalry captain, and assigned him to lurk nearby to deal with the pesky corpse witch. He himself was instantly enveloped in molten lava, appearing in the path of the cavalry's charge. He dodged the incoming cavalry and the sharp blade of his frostfall blade with a sideways motion, slashing across a hoof of the cavalry's warhorse. The skeletal body of the warhorse was sliced like tofu, with most of the leg bone severed, instantly reducing its charging speed. Otherwise, the leg would have been completely broken, rendering it incapable of charging. Fortunately, it was a skeletal warhorse. A normal warhorse would have stumbled and fallen under the blow. Unable to charge, the cavalry captain's eyes, once gleaming with soul fire, suddenly erupted in flames, their black visor encasing his head. Emerald green flames emanated from the visor. Liu Ming knew this was a sign of undead fury. As expected, the cavalry captain leaped from his horse, his 2 to 3 meter tall frame sprinting heavily towards Liu Ming. Liu Ming remained undaunted. Although his power level was only E level, he should have struggled against D level creatures. However, since his body had been transformed by the lava heart, he felt his physical fitness was no longer inferior to that of an average D level melee professional. Especially when the lava heart's power was unleashed, his explosive power rivaled that of a D level warrior. Bang! Liu Ming's single-handed sword collided with a two-handed heavy sword, but he was violently knocked back more than 10 steps before recovering. Two-handed swords are incredibly powerful. I'm afraid it's also enhanced by my frost sword. Liu Ming retreated violently but remained unharmed, even offering a mocking chuckle. A nearby corpse wizard seemed incredulous that this human he had once encountered could now battle against his strongest subordinates. But upon seeing Liu Ming's defeat, he quickly raised his staff and fired two crimson rays straight at him. The silver scale light armor's defensive force field instantly expanded, blocking most of the ray's power, while the rest was easily shattered by Liu Ming's sword. Sumi also flashed towards the corpse wizard the moment he launched his attack. A purple shadow appeared before the wizard, and a cross of claw marks slashed across his head. As the wizard's head was about to be blasted in the head by Sumi's claw, a sudden, intense blood-red light enveloped Sumi's body. The claw that could have severed the purple corpse demon's tentacles only caused the oval of blood-red light to tremble slightly. Just as Sumi was about to strike again, 7 or 8 crimson rays shot out from the blood-red light. It vanished in a flash. 7 or 8 rays pierced through the air, where Sumi had disappeared, striking a large tree beside the road, piercing through it entirely, leaving 7 or 8 holes as thick as a child's arm in the trunk. That was 2 or 3 people's arms thick. Liu Ming's eyes nearly popped out at the sight. Instant spell, powerful spell, and multiple instant spells? Are you sure you're only a first level corpse wizard apprentice, not a second level official corpse wizard? Although it was just a common spell like Crimson Ray, the ability to instantly cast 7 or 8 spells, each significantly more powerful than a typical Crimson Ray, was a powerful ability that could never be found in the hands of this apprentice gal, with whom he had previously encountered him. If this gal wasn't the same gal from before, how could Frostfall be explained? Even if Frostfall was captured by this gal, the fact that he had lost a finger when he used the Thunder Talisman self-explosion on it confirmed his identity. He could already see that 2 fingers were missing from the gal's right hand, which held the staff. Could it be due to magical equipment? And the Bloody Light should be the rare blood-based defensive spell, Blood Veil Light. From memory, this spell originated from the Crimson Lich School, a school of liches. Could this gal be from the Crimson School? That's right, gals and liches of the Crimson School are said to have a strong desire for blood. Just as Liu Ming was trembling with fear, wondering what this corpse wizard, seemingly wandering onto the wrong set, had come from, Gongweixin had already parked her car, and, wielding the divine longsword Liu Ming had gifted her, charged directly at the wizard. Sword energy slashed against the wizard's incredibly defensive bloodlit eggshell, causing it to tremble. Sumi reappeared, 3 phantom claws tearing through the blood-curdling light. The wizard's defensive spells finally reached their limit, shattering into a rain of blood. Like 2 fierce gods, Sumi and Gongweixin lunged at the terrified wizard. After dodging more than a dozen crimson rays fired at them in a flurry of panic, Sumi's cross-shaped claw marks slammed into the wizard's rotting skull, while Gongweixin's longsword slashed through his body. The wizard's head instantly exploded, and his body split in 2. Looks like he's just an ordinary C-rank apprentice corpse wizard, Liu Ming concluded speechlessly, watching the corpse wizard being slain without so much as a single blow by the combined forces of Sumi and Gongweixin. He then turned his attention to the cavalry captain, who was still hammering at him with sword after sword. After dodging 5 or 6 attacks, Liu Ming withstood a frost blight attack and decapitated the cavalry captain. Holding the weighty frost blight in his hand, Liu Ming sighed softly, "You're finally back." Without the corpse wizard's control, the remaining undead were quickly slaughtered. Liu Ming approached the corpse wizard's body and performed the routine work of a demon hunter in later generations, touching the corpse. This was a first for him. Only intelligent creatures tend to carry valuables on their person. Who would expect a purple vine corpse demon to have amassed such treasures? Besides the corpse wizard's staff and a few lesser magical items, a notebook, cunningly sewn beneath the skin of its rotting abdomen, piqued Liu Ming's curiosity. Hidden with such care, this notebook was undoubtedly something special. The notebook's incredibly rich, high-energy magic confirmed his thoughts. Lich's notes. These were the notes of the legendary Lich Gmessane, accompanying him from the moment he evolved into a full-fledged Lich, until he became a legendary Lich. The first half of the notebook contained mostly daily diary entries. But when he flipped to the back of the notebook, the contents filled Liu Ming's face with ecstasy, his heart skipping a beat in his ecstasy. The last half, across hundreds of pages of magical paper, contained only a single spell. Scarlet Hand, Legendary Creation, Potential Tier 3 SSS, Trays, Liquid Damage Immunity, Resilience, Blood Energy Regeneration, Lossless Continuation, Blood Burning Demonic Transformation. Abilities, Advanced Scarlet Ray, Deadly Scarlet, Blood Rage Magic, Advanced Blood Shield, Advanced Blood Essence Extraction, Death Sundering, Advanced Scarlet Bloodlust, Life Wound, Scarlet Sigh, Blood Poison, Flesh Withering, Blood Vortex, Summon Blood Beast, Roaring Blood Demon, Enslave Vampires, Enslave Flesh Life, Scarlet Demon Sword. Description, a brilliant creation of the Mad Lich Gmessane of the Scarlet Lich School. This is one of the ultimate spells in the Scarlet Lich School's legendary magic hall, rivaling famous legendary spells like Falling Fire, Summoning Dragons, Destruction Storm, and World Destroying Light. P.S. Here's the third update, a bonus update for the Dragon Breeder's second deacon, the gentleman of the tribe. Why did Liu Ming lose his arm? Wasn't it because he wanted to begin learning the legendary spell Scarlet Hand? Brothers, today, whether Dragon Breeder can recommend over 5,000 is up to you. If it can reach 5,000, I will continue to update 3 times on Friday. Chapter 83 Liquid Damage Immunity, Deadly Scarlet. The pickup truck sped toward Jialin County. Liu Ming, sitting in the back seat, quickly read the entire Lich's notebook from cover to cover. A look of shock crossed his eyes, and he took a deep breath before slowly setting the notebook aside. If the text on the magical paper had been written in necromancer, Liu Ming would naturally be unable to understand it. However, coincidentally, the entire notebook was written in the ancient magical language. This ancient magical language, in turn, was derived from the ancient string magic language, which was inextricably linked to string magic, the core of dragon language magic. As a dragon keeper, Liu Ming, with his professional expertise in dragon language, read the notes written in the ancient magical language with the ease of someone who had studied simplified Chinese for 20 years suddenly reading traditional Chinese. With the exception of a few rare characters, he could guess most of the content even by guessing. The spell recorded in this notebook, the Scholar's Hand, could be said to be the most brilliant experiment and achievement of its owner. In this spell, the legendary Crimson Lich named Gmessen decided to combine 99 top-level innate magical abilities and 37 magical traits into a single progressive legendary spell. Furthermore, according to the description, the Crimson Hand had already been listed in the Hall of Legendary Spells by the Crimson Lich School, a notorious and extremely brutal lich organization. This confirmed his success. However, the notes he had obtained were only preliminary, recording only 27 innate magical abilities and 13 magical traits. Even so, this spell was terrifying and incredible. Innate magical abilities, also known as magical powers, are typically acquired by magicians as they advance through the ranks. A first-level magician apprentice evolves to a second-level full magician, a third-level intermediate magician, a fourth-level advanced magician, a fifth-level archmage, a sixth-level grand mage, and finally a seventh-level legendary archmage, gaining at least 6 innate magical abilities in total. These abilities are formal magician, intermediate magician, advanced magician, great magician, grand magus, and the legendary taboo magic abilities. Depending on the magician's talent, some talented mages might only gain 2 or 3 magical abilities upon advancement. However, a Scholar's Hand, even at the 3rd SSS level, possesses 27 innate magical abilities. Even with these 27 terrifying innate magical abilities and 13 magical traits, a fledgling Scholar's Hand at the 3rd SSS level is undoubtedly more formidable than the average newly promoted 4th level lich. What a mortal wizard. If they hadn't been so ruthless, evolving into a lich wouldn't be a distant dream. A Scholar's Lich, almost certain to be listed on the dangerous monster bounty list for creatures above level 4 in the future, met his end at his own hands. Liu Ming silently lamented. The poor corpse wizard even boasted about recording his experiences on the blank magic paper at the back of his notebook. In the 9th era of the Scholar's calendar, on the 19th day of the grey blue moon in the year 8759, I finally found the treasure I had been searching for 100 years, the Gurmasane Lich's notes, in the magic library tower number 86 of the 10th Academy. I'm looking forward to their expressions when they see me master the Scholar's Hand. Those idiots treated me like a clown. They all said there was no way the Lich notes of His Majesty the Mad Lich King Gurmasane could be in the Universal Library Tower of the 10th Academy. Even though the Mad Lich King did teach at the 10th Academy when he was a novice lich, it was simply wishful thinking to find his notes based on that clue. They also said His Majesty the Mad Lich King had become a legendary lich 10,000 years ago in the 8th era. Even if he had hidden his notes in the library tower so maliciously, how could they have remained undiscovered for so long? But what happened, idiots? I found the notes. I spent 100 years getting from Universal Library Tower number 1 to number 86, and finally found it in the secret compartment of this neglected Universal Magic Dictionary covered in thick dust, my precious Lich's notes. Seeing this, Liu Ming suddenly felt a pang of pity for the apprentice cadaver who had tragically perished at the hands of his own dragon pet and Gong Weeksin. Hundreds of years of harvest had been wasted, but I will use your legacy to grow stronger, Liu Ming promised silently. The pity was fleeting, and he continued reading. I, the cadaver apprentice Gmerans, will surely become a great crimson lich, even surpassing my master, the Lich Keslo. A sudden glint of surprise flashed in his eyes. It was as if he had seen the name Gmerans on the dangerous monster bounty list in the Wuling safe zone in later generations. A bloodthirsty brutal lich. The rest of the text was mostly about the cadaver's journey from the undead realm through the spatial portal, how he instructed his undead to collect fresh corpses for his Crimson Hand's evolution, and so on. Only one section caught Liu Ming's attention. I finally constructed the Scholar's Hand, but it seems to differ from the records. I've only gained the liquid damage immunity tray and the advanced Scholar's Ray magical ability. The notes say that the more concentrated blood energy the initial spell model provides, the greater the Scholar's Hand's potential will be. Could it be that the blood energy provided by 1,000 human corpses isn't enough? Seeing this, Liu Ming's shred of pity vanished in an instant, his face cold. A corpse wizard who slaughtered thousands of people for magical materials definitely didn't deserve pity. Seeing this, Liu Ming stopped flipping back and opened the first page, which recorded the Scholar's Hand spell. Mysterious patterns appeared before his eyes. These patterns were the Scholar's Hand spell models. Of the hundreds of pages of magic documents describing this spell, at least 90% were devoted to the Scholar's Hand spell models. Learning this spell requires only two prerequisites. The first is the mastery of magical power. Although he hadn't systematically studied the use of magic, the essence of magic was primordial energy. Beyond the subtle differences in how the energy manifested, there was essentially no difference between the two. This requirement was essentially met. The second prerequisite was that at least one arm, or multiple, be completely replaced with a Crimson Hand. In other words, after a severed arm, one or more arms would regenerate, becoming the carrier of the Crimson Hand's magical properties. This prerequisite also happened to be met. However, he wondered if the Crimson Hand's blood energy, described repeatedly in the notebook, could dispel the lethal energy that, like a maggot in the tarsal bone, rendered even low-level healing graces ineffective. Liu Ming closed his eyes, his sixth dimensional perception reaching out like mental tentacles toward the first magic pattern. A magical pattern resembling a crimson arm leaped from the magic paper like a living thing, appearing in his mind. A flash of shock crossed Liu Ming's consciousness. This magic notebook contained not only spells, but also special magical abilities passed down through generations. Magical inheritance is a mysterious method by which advanced spellcasters pass down the structural models of their magical abilities directly to their descendants. This method allows future generations to master a spell in record time, bypassing the tedious process of reconstructing the spell model from scratch. This means that Liu Ming, who had originally planned to spend a year or two mastering the spell, was able to quickly master the Scholar's Hand. As the dozens of magical patterns on the first 3 pages flew into Liu Ming's mind, forming a vast magical matrix, he suddenly emerged from his 6th dimensional state, his face pale. His entire body paled, as if he had lost significant blood. No wonder necromancers need to prepare so many corpses to learn this spell. It's a sheer drain of blood and vitality to rapidly construct the spell model. With each magical pattern materializing in his mind, Liu Ming felt as if a portion of his blood and vitality were being drained, as if each pattern was formed from his very life force and blood. Nothing comes without a price. He cradled the corpse soul's blood marrow in his arms and continued to formulate his spell. The fact that the corpse which had attacked for this blood marrow meant it must be extremely important to him, a fact confirmed by the translation of the heroic spirit's Kemen language. Therefore, Liu Ming concluded that the blood marrow would be of great use in constructing the Scholar's Hand. Sure enough, as Liu Ming continued to construct the magic matrix and spell model, the feeling of his life force being drained away disappeared, replaced by a mysterious bloody energy that continuously flowed from the blood marrow into his body. After Liu Ming materialized the magic patterns on hundreds of pages of magic paper into the magic matrix and spell model in his mind, an immense Scholar's arm appeared in his mind's eye. Its veins intertwined like tree roots, and behind these veins were blood-red stars symbolizing the various magical properties and abilities of the Scholar's Hand. However, these stars were all a dull, dark red. By then, the blood marrow in Liu Ming's arms had shrunk to just half its original size. Liu Ming continued to draw blood energy from the remaining marrow. Countless strands of blood energy surged toward the first blood light on the left side of the crimson arm. This was the magical tray of liquid damage immunity. The dim blood light representing the liquid damage immunity tray instantly ignited, shimmering red like blood red stars. Despite his 5 senses being blocked, waves of tingling and itching from the severed right arm still reached his consciousness. Had Liu Ming opened his eyes at this moment, he would have seen streams of crimson blood bubbling continuously from his severed right arm. Within the crimson fluid, the same death energy, like the great tarsal maggot, that had previously absorbed the healing energy of the divine grace, reappeared, but was quickly dispelled by the crimson energy, dissolving into black smoke moments later. As the grey energy vanished, the severed arm regenerated within a few breaths. Blood energy then surged toward the starlight, represented by the first high-level Scarlet Ray ability on the right side of the bloody arm. A thick ray unconsciously shot out from Liu Ming's newly formed palm, easily piercing the pickup truck's door, and startling Gong Weeksin, who was driving. The blood energy then split into 2 streams, one directed toward the magical attribute and the other toward the magical power. The magical attribute's stretch and the magical power's deadly scarlet radiated simultaneously. Liu Ming's right arm suddenly stretched out like a rubber arm, its fingertips turning scarlet, as sharp as the tips of 5 blood-drenched swords. His arm twitched unconsciously like a raging python, its scarlet fingertips instantly shredding the car door and roof. The last drop of blood marrow was then completely absorbed. P.S. Here's a first update. Thanks to the 5 brothers Shen Mafua and Kang Kang Piro, 99.8, Zimeng Sixiang DDR, Zin Mengayan, and Universe's Singularity for their donations and support. I'm also celebrating the arrival of the book's second leader, Shen Mafua and Kang Kang Piro, and the third, 99.8. We'll be celebrating with updates on Monday, Tuesday, and 3 days next week. I'm also grateful to everyone who voted yesterday. Thank you for your support. I'm especially grateful to 99.8, Gentlemen from the Men's Tribe, and Tanamo for their referral red envelope support. It was truly touching. Just by donating money, the 3 brothers instantly boosted Dragon Breeder's vote count by hundreds. But I hope you won't spend money on referral red envelopes in the future. I accept that Dragon Breeder's performance isn't great. After all, it's not that great, but I'd feel guilty relying on your money to boost it. Besides, it's not easy for them to make money. It's not easy for them to live. Although I said no, I'm deeply moved. Finally, I thank 99.8, Gentlemen from the Men's Tribe, and Tanamo again. Chapter 84 Purple Mist Cloud Mountain, Jarling Palace Yang. Sumi, noticing her master's abnormality, meowed in panic, leaping from the passenger seat to the back seat, firmly pinning down Liu Ming's long, flailing arm. Liu Ming, what's wrong with you? Gong Weeksin quickly stopped the car and scurried to the back seat to help Sumi hold down her arm, which was still thrashing wildly, trying to break free. It's okay, just a little accident. Liu Ming, recovering from his 6th dimensional perception and regaining his 5 senses, quickly controlled his arm, which had stretched 2 or 3 times its original length, and spoke slowly. He felt helpless about the accident, as if every new ability he gained, when he wasn't aware of it, would be used uncontrollably. Is it that strange notebook? I had Sumi burn it. Gong Weeksin noticed that Liu Ming had been acting strangely since he unearthed the strange notebook from the corpse of the Lich Wizard. It's okay, I used the method in the notebook to restore the severed arm, so there's something wrong. Liu Ming calmly tucked the Lich notebook into his arms to prevent it from being destroyed by this fierce woman. But this is too strange. Gong Weeksin looked at Liu Ming's new arm with a puzzled expression. The scarlet hand had stopped stretching and retracting uncontrollably. It was the same thickness and length as a normal arm, but it was now covered in strange scarlet patterns, like a tattoo. These patterns took the form of triangles, hexagrams, hexagons, and other shapes. The pattern stretched from the shoulder blade to the wrist like a mysterious magical matrix. It's better than having your arm cut off. Stop talking nonsense. Do you still want to save your family? Drive. Liu Ming didn't bother to explain, and simply sent her off. The pickup truck, which had been torn into a convertible by Liu Ming, continued its wobbly journey. Gong Weeksin's family lived on Ziwuan Mountain, north of Jialin County. Although they lived in the mountains, they were not farmers or hermits as they were rumored to be. Instead, they lived in one of the most luxurious villas in the entire Wuling region, the Ziwuan Mountain Villa. There were fewer than 30 villas on Ziwuan Mountain, all of which were occupied by high-ranking officials and wealthy individuals. Liu Ming also learned about Gong Weixin's family background. Her father, Gong Huagay, was merely a retired official, but her brother was the current Jialing County magistrate, Gong Mancheng. Her mother, Yang Zuai, belonged to a family whose Yang and Gong families were long-standing acquaintances. The Gong family had served as officials for generations, while the Yang family had been engaged in business, a friendship that stretched back to the founding of the People's Republic of China. Both families lived on Ziwuan Mountain. This seemed to save Liu Ming trouble, as he didn't have to make 2 special trips to rescue someone. However, he felt a sense of confusion. In the early days of the apocalypse, politicians and wealthy businessmen should have been the focus of government and military protection. So how could the Jialing County magistrate and his family have perished? While Jialing County didn't have as many armed forces as Wuling City, they still had some. Could it be that they couldn't even protect the magistrate's family? Gong Weixin lived in Villa number 3 on Ziwuan Mountain. Owning one of the 3 most scenic villas on Ziwuan Mountain, the Gong family was undoubtedly powerful, but Liu Ming also felt a growing sense of doubt. How could such a powerful family have suffered such a tragic death, causing Gong Weixin to change so drastically? Could the rumors be false? Just as they reached the halfway point, bursts of intense gunfire rang out from the top. Gong Weixin's face flashed with anxiety. She slammed the accelerator, but the pickup truck was clearly underpowered and climbed the slope slowly. Seeing the anxiety in Gong Weixin's eyes, Liu Ming said, "Stop the car. I've got a way to get there." Gong Weixin turned to Liu Ming, who looked determined, and stopped the car. "Sumi, I'm counting on you." After getting out of the car, Sumi, at Liu Ming's beckoning, suddenly transformed from a half-grown cat into a mysterious powerful purple beast. "Bear with me." Liu Ming patted Sumi's furry head, pulled Gong Weixin up, and jumped onto its back. Sumi transformed into a flash of purple lightning, reaching the top of the mountain in just a dozen breaths. Holding onto Liu Ming's waist, to keep steady at breakneck speed, Gong Weixin's anxiety deepened as the approaching gunfire emanated from the direction of her own villa. When the 2 men and the beast arrived at a villa with a wooden door plate numbered 3, they saw a dozen heavily armed SWAT officers inside the iron gate engaged in a fierce gunfight with several swift black figures. One of the tall SWAT officers eschewed firearms, wielding a sword, his hand ablaze with orange flames, blocking 2 of the shadows. The fastest shadow, after withstanding several rounds of gunfire, suddenly rammed the officer firing at it, seemingly oblivious to the force. A crackling sound echoed, and then it suddenly pounced on a man surrounded by SWAT officers. The figure's speed was so great that the officers surrounding the man had no time to react before its blood-drenched claws raked the man's neck. The tall SWAT officer, the only one able to block the shadow, was held back by the 2 shadows, unable to reach him. The tragic scene of a living being torn apart seemed imminent. "No!" Gong Weixin screamed in terror upon witnessing this, frantically drawing her sword to release a powerful blow, attempting to free the man from the claws. But before Gong Weixin could draw her sword, the figure's claws had already struck. At that moment, an arm resembling a red python suddenly appeared, pulling the man back. The claw's attack missed, but the force continued its furious attack, slicing through the armed man's stomach. The man, flung over 10 meters away, paled slightly, seemingly still reeling from the near-fatal situation. But upon realizing he had been rescued, he quickly regained his composure, demonstrating his exceptional skill in cultivating his inner strength. "You saved me." But before he could finish his words, he spotted another figure behind the man who had saved his life. "Second sister, why are you here?" "Thank you for saving my brother." Gong Weixin thanked Liu Ming before turning to look at the rescued man. "Brother, where are grandpa, sister, and the others?" "They're still inside. They're all fine for now," a sturdy man in his 30s said with a wry smile. "Second sister, what are you doing? These monsters are fine even after being shot. Are you going to die with your mediocre swordsmanship learned from auntie?" Seeing Gong Weixin rushing towards the monsters blocking the villa door with a long sword, the middle-aged man's face darkened, and he reached out to pull her out. "It's okay, she can handle these monsters." Liu Ming pressed his right hand on the man's shoulder, making him feel like he was being clamped in a vice, unable to move a single step. He could only watch his sister's slender body march towards the hideous monsters. Liu Ming had already determined that these were just a few mutant dogs. Aside from the slightly stronger E rank that had just attacked the man, the others were only F rank monsters. For Gong Weeksin, who could hold her own against the near B rank purple vine corpse demon, they were nothing but easy prey. As the middle-aged man stared in amazement, Gong Weeksin hacked 5 or 6 mutant dogs, invulnerable even to assault rifles, into pieces like cucumbers. In Gong Weeksin's luxurious villa with simple decorations, Liu Ming looked at Gong Weeksin and her family with a strange expression as they asked her all sorts of questions. "Xina, your aunt is almost worried to death about you. You are the only one not at home. Even your grandfather's family moved here after the disaster." The woman dressed in the same white as Gong Weeksin asked with concern. This is Gong Weeksin's aunt Gong Huashan. Although she is the elder, she looks only a few years older than Gong Weeksin. She looks very capable in her traditional training clothes. The sharpened steel sword in her hand, still dripping with blood, and a headless monster corpse lying at her feet, make it clear at a glance that she is not an ordinary person, at least a top-notch fighter among ordinary people. "You silly girl, is this your boyfriend? How come you brought him back without me even mentioning him?" This is her mother, Yang Zuai, a graceful and elegant middle-aged woman. "I'm glad you're okay." This is her father, Gong Huage, who is quiet but very calm. "Your eldest brother said this young man just saved his life. He's a very good guy." This was her uncle, Gong Huagwen. "Second sister, why aren't you talking? Your boyfriend isn't talking either. Why did you find someone as cold and aloof as you?" Gong Weeksin's younger sister, Gong Ruahan, asked curiously. "He's not my boyfriend." Gong Weeksin finally spoke, her voice tinged with a strange tremor. "Ha ha ha, then who is he? Why did he come back with you? Isn't he my son-in-law?" A sturdy elderly figure, accompanied by a fire-awakened SWAT captain, emerged from the back of the crowd and said with a smile, "Grandpa, why are you being so frivolous again? He's just my friend." Gong Weeksin, who had remained expressionless in front of her family, blushed slightly at these words. "Young man, tell me why you're here." Gong Weeksin's grandfather gave his granddaughter a meaningful look, then turned to the silent Liu Ming. The others all looked at him as well. P.S. Here's a second update. Thanks to the tips from 4 brothers, Shen Jinming, Loi Sufeng 126, Shuiao 2017082315234719, and Shuiao 2017011012342937. Thanks to Tandmo and Lingchen for their tips and support. Please recommend, tip, and support me. Chapter 85 Schizophrenia, Crazy Chef. "She and I came to save you," Liu Ming told Gong Weeksin's family, facing the humiliating situation of a 3-way interrogation. "Mancheng said you saved him from a monster? What are you capable of, young man?" Although times had changed, and the emergence of talented individuals had broadened his horizons, the old man still wondered what qualifications Liu Ming had to earn the respect of his eldest grandson, Gong Mancheng, and his beloved granddaughter. Molten lava gushed from Liu Ming's palm and landed on the wooden floor of the villa's living room, scorching the expensive floorboards. "It's truly an era of talented individuals, even more blazing than Captain Hao's flame," the old man exclaimed in admiration, his eyes gleaming. Captain Hao must be the flame awakener. Liu Ming had just spotted the flaming weapon in his hand amidst the SWAT officers battling the mutant dogs. "Xina, I heard you killed those monsters that left everyone helpless?" the old man asked, turning to look at his granddaughter. "Yes, Grandpa." Gong Weeksin casually released a burst of sword energy, puncturing another large hole in the floorboards of his home. This time, the old man's eyes finally lit up with barely suppressed shock. He knew full well that his granddaughter had been learning martial arts from her aunt since she was young. His daughter, Gong Huashan, was a renowned swordsman throughout Xiangnan province, and having personally trained her, her granddaughter naturally possessed considerable proficiency in traditional swordsmanship. But to claim she could rival the inhuman prowess of legendary martial arts masters was sheer nonsense, yet reality compelled him to believe it. Young friend, since you and Zyna came to rescue us, you've already done us a life-saving favor. Why don't you stay for a while and let us show you your hospitality? The old man's eyes gleamed with experience as he addressed him with a sophisticated air, changing the address from young man to young friend. Liu Ming chuckled inwardly, knowing full well what the old man was planning. He simply wanted him to be a free security guard. I'm afraid you're dreaming. I came here to kidnap your granddaughter as your henchman, and you want to keep me as a security guard? Gong Weeksin, what are your plans? He ignored the old man and simply passed the blame to Gong Weeksin. Hearing this, Gong Weeksin gritted her teeth and said to her family, I want to take everyone to Wuling. It's a very safe place over there. Are you crazy, girl? Do you know why your brother came back? He's here to take us to the county armed forces headquarters. That's right, sister. The danger around the armed forces headquarters has been eliminated by the special police and the military. It's now a safe area, with nearly 10,000 survivors gathered there. That's why I came here. You finally come back, so you must come with me. Gong Mancheng looked at his sister with a serious expression that brooked no disobedience. Yes, second sister. The journey from Jialing to Wuling is dozens of kilometers long. It's so dangerous. I don't want to take the risk. Gong Weeksin's cousin, Gong Manayan, firmly shook her head, rejecting her proposal. None of us will leave. If you dare leave, I'll have no daughter like you. Gong Weeksin's mother was the most vehement. You haven't been bewitched by this outsider, have you? Gong Huagwen, who had just praised the young man for his kindness, gave Liu Ming a stern look. Watching the family unanimously accuse their sister, Gong Weeksin's younger sister, Gong Ruohan, suddenly ran out to stand with her and yelled at the crowd, my sister single-handedly killed so many monsters and saved us. What right do you have to criticize her? I'm going with my sister anyway. The outcome was exactly as Liu Ming had predicted. Over a dozen members of the Gong and Yang families steadfastly refused to follow Gong Weeksin. For someone so powerful in peacetime, it was almost unthinkable to expect them to put their lives at risk when they had other options. To Liu Ming's mild surprise, Gong Weeksin resolutely decided to go with him, fulfilling their promise. However, she added a time limit. She would serve Liu Ming for 6 months, after which she would return to Jialing and be with her family. After the two men and a team of special police officers safely arrived at what Gong Mancheng had described as the safe area of the armed forces, a small group of people appeared. Gong Weeksin's sister, Gong Ruohan, had gone mad and insisted on following her sister, leaving the two men with no choice but to take her along. At Gong Ruohan's insistence, the three returned to Ziwuan Mountain. She'd forgotten to take her treasure, though no one knew what it was. The group's rickety pickup truck had been replaced with a Hummer, sponsored by Gong Mancheng. Of course, the sponsorship was for his sister, Gong Weeksin, not Liu Ming, now a public enemy of the Gong and Yang families. Gong Weeksin's entire family now considered Liu Ming the enemy who had kidnapped their daughter. With the exception of Gong Ruohan and Gong Weeksin's 3-year-old cousin, Huo Juai, who barely spoke clearly, no one else looked at him kindly. When the Hummer reached the foot of Ziwuan Mountain, a large ornate courtyard caught Liu Ming's eye. A massive memorial archway stood in front, adorned with 7 large characters, resembling dragons and phoenixes. Ziwuan Mountain Sanatorium? He asked. Do you have a sanatorium at the foot of the mountain? For retired cadres? Ziwuan Mountain boasts one of the best environments in all of Wuling, with the highest oxygen levels and lowest air pollution, making it a perfect location for a sanatorium. What retired cadres? This is a psychiatric sanatorium for the mentally ill. Gong Ruohan was clearly unhappy about the mental hospital opening right next to his home, and replied angrily. Liu Ming was surprised. The best villa area in Jialing County was built right there, and the people who lived there were either rich or noble. To be able to open such a high-end sanatorium for the mentally ill right under the noses of these dignitaries without fear of retaliation, the person behind it must be very powerful. As the Hummer passed by the road outside the sanatorium, 2 furtive figures suddenly appeared in front of the sanatorium. They were about to sneak out when a loud car noise suddenly came from outside, and the wandering monsters instantly rushed out of the sanatorium towards the source of the sound. However, before they could rush out of the sanatorium, they discovered 2 living people. The two creeping figures were then surrounded by monsters, each with a snarling face and a ferocious look on their face. The wind whistles, the Yi River is cold, and the warriors leave, never to return. Cookting, are you afraid? The taller, thinner man with glasses, the other of the two, suddenly exclaimed loudly at the approaching monster. Madman, is this combat mode now? Asked the other, a portly man in a white chef's uniform. Puff. A lunging cannibal corpse was stabbed in the eye with a scalpel, seemingly weak, by the thin man with glasses. The man with glasses twisted the scalpel in his pale slender hand, and with a jerk of his pale blade, the cannibal corpse fell helplessly to the ground. Kill one person every 10 steps, and I will not be left behind 1,000 miles. The man with glasses muttered a line from an ancient Chinese proverb with each kill, though his pronunciation occasionally faltered. The fatter man, presumably a chef, wielded a kitchen knife and a boning knife, also slashing a cannibal corpse. The two men had no cover or shelter, but they worked in perfect harmony, back to back, forming a shield. The horde of monsters was unable to take them down for a while. Liu Ming marveled at this scene. He could tell at a glance that the two men were ordinary people, relying on their exceptional reflexes and combat awareness to hold their own. Their speed wasn't particularly fast, but their reflexes surpassed the normal human's cognitive limits. Whenever a cannibal corpse attacked with such swift force, they narrowly avoided it, seemingly in slow motion, by the merest fraction of a second. These must be two survivors whose reflexes had reached their limits. In later generations, some individuals, though not naturally gifted enough to awaken their primordial abilities, managed to surpass human limits in certain areas under certain circumstances. Those who naturally pushed the limits of strength were known as strength limiters, while those who pushed the limits of speed were known as agility limiters. This included the reaction limiters whose reflexes had reached their limits. Stop the car, I'll get out, and take a look. Liu Ming was curious about the two men. If they were of good character, he wouldn't mind helping them, provided they knew what was good. Otherwise, he wouldn't mind killing two passers-by. In the end, Liu Ming saved the two. You said you had just come down from Purple Mist Cloud Mountain on the day of the catastrophe? Liu Ming asked casually. Yeah, I went to Villa number 1 at Ziwuan Mountain to prepare a family dinner for a former high-ranking official. At the foot of the mountain, I was chased by monsters and hid in a sanatorium, but I ran into this guy. He kept following me around and pretending to be awesome, and it really annoyed me. The portly chef, still in his white uniform, replied with an annoyed look on his face as he followed Liu Ming toward the distant Hummer parked. I want to sweep the world with my sword, but I'm afraid of destroying heaven and earth. I want to be isolated and free from the world, and I'm the only one who has no regrets. The man with glasses sighed again. What's his illness? Liu Ming asked, speechless, pointing to his head. In my experience, it's probably schizophrenia, the chef replied with experience. How do you know? Didn't you just meet him? Liu Ming was curious. It's hard to explain in a few words. You'll know in a moment. The chef looked helpless, his face contorted, as if he had swallowed a fly. As soon as he finished speaking, the man with glasses suddenly looked anxious and said, Cook, who is he? Why are you still standing there? Come with me, and find a car to escape. With that, the man with glasses scurried off to the parking lot across the street to look for a car. Is it back to normal? Liu Ming asked. The cook shook his head speechlessly. The man with glasses started yelling again. What kind of crappy cars are these? Are we going to escape in these crappy cars? Where's the Land Rover? Where's the Hummer? Where's the Cayenne? At the very least, get me a BMW X5, or how can I show off? Is that why you haven't escaped yet? Liu Ming looked at them with a look of wonder, as if he were looking at a demon. When he's not going crazy, he'll drag me to find a car to escape, but he says he won't drive unless he can't find a car worth over 600,000 yuan. He's been looking for days and still can't find one that works. I can't drive. I should have gotten a driver's license. The cook looked almost mad with an expression of torment. This guy really is a lunatic, Liu Ming muttered inwardly. P.S. Here comes the third update, which is an extra update for the first leader of the men's tribe, the gentleman. Thanks to brother Shadow Man Huo for his support. The madman and the cook are based on the prototypes of the King of Force and the gentleman in the book club. Don't ask me if the King of Force is so crazy. Do you think the title of the King of Force is just a boast? It seems that it is really a boast. The gentleman is indeed a cook with 2 knives. In the future, there will be more supporting roles based on the brothers. Brothers who want to play supporting roles, please come to the group. Group number 705,387,791. Let us grow up happily in this gay family. No, it should be a family of love and affection. The style of painting is a bit wrong after writing it. Chapter 86. Antique Cameras. The Truth of Later Life. Part 1. After failing to find a car, the man with glasses quickly slipped back. No, they're all broken. Let's go back. Back to where? Liu Ming asked. Seeing Liu Ming's puzzled expression, the fat cook quickly explained. He told me to go back to the sanatorium. There were more than 2 survivors in the entire sanatorium, but we were the only 2 intent on escaping. Everyone else was hunkered down in the sanatorium's supply warehouse, waiting for rescue. There were plenty of supplies in the warehouse, so we wouldn't starve for a while. Running on foot through a monster-infested landscape without a way to get around is just courting death. So every time we slip out and get discovered by the monsters, if we can't find a vehicle, we slip back and hide. If it weren't for you, big brother, we'd almost never get back this time, the fat cook said with gratitude. He seemed completely unaware that the monsters had suddenly discovered and surrounded them because they were attracted by the sound of Liu Ming and his group's hammer, and that they were simply unlucky innocents caught in the crossfire. Why did you want to leave? Liu Ming asked curiously. A flicker of struggle flashed in the fat cook's eyes, as if he wasn't sure whether to answer the question. Finally, with a long sigh, he spoke. There are at least 100 monsters in the sanatorium, and they attack the warehouse every few days. As the death toll grew, everyone realized that the monsters weren't very aggressive after eating a full meal. But if we didn't take a few people as food, they could bang on the door all day. To stay alive, when the monsters attack, everyone squeezes out a few people before closing the door to resist. That way, when the monsters find they can't break through the warehouse door, they'll retreat. But these monsters come several times a day, and every time, several people die. Originally, of the more than 200 survivors, a third have been lost in just a few days. They're all the old, weak, and sick who can't squeeze in. Although I'm strong, who knows when I'll be squeezed out to feed the monsters? I'm going crazy. I'd rather fight than just survive here. The fat cook's face was pained. After all, as a member of the new generation who grew up in the sun, the cook felt that pushing one's own kind into the tiger's mouth for survival was no different from beasts. What surprised the fat cook was that the man before him, after hearing his story, didn't even show a flicker in his eyes, as if he was used to it. That's right, like someone who's done this kind of thing all the time, used to it. Big brother, you saved us too, just to use us as bait, didn't you? The fat cook asked, his jaws trembling slightly at the thought. Then, thinking of the man's terrifying power, from the molten lava to the lengthening arms, his 200 pounds of fat trembled uncontrollably. Beat? Liu Ming asked, finding the term novel. That's what the group of people in the sanatorium who suggested pushing people out called it. Those who are pushed out to be used as food are called bait. Interesting. Are you going to leave? Liu Ming looked at him with a half smile. Let's go. Staying here and dying is worse than death. Even if it means being bait, I'll accept it. The fat man gritted his teeth, grabbed the bespectacled man who had been clamoring for him to return to the sanatorium, and hurriedly followed Liu Ming out of this sanatorium that was more like people eating people than monsters eating people. When the old, weak, and sick, who had been squeezed out and pounced upon by the monsters, cried for help, they were met not with helping hands from their own kind, but with cold stares and slamming iron doors. Their desperate, horrified faces, their mangled, bloody, and slowly decaying bodies, played out in his mind constantly. He had been having nightmares for 5 days straight. Cook, do you believe I'll kill you? I told you to go back to the sanatorium, where are you taking me? The bespectacled man began to yell again. Run for your life. The cook shouted without turning back. Let me go. If you want to run, run. You're crazy to run on foot without a car, aren't you? The bespectacled man glared at the fat cook with disdain. Holy shit, you really have a car? It's decent, barely above average quality for me to show off. The bespectacled man's eyes suddenly lit up, noticing the black Hummer not far away. He broke free from the fat cook's hand and ran over. As he impatiently walked to the front of the car, trying to open the door and get in, a white Nike sneaker thrust out and kicked him back. Step on me? Do you know my name is Liu Ming? I'm the one who steps on others, never the one who gets stepped on. The man with glasses roared, scrambling to his feet and charging forward with a punch as Liu Ming looked at him with a hint of pity. He was kicked back again. I'm done. I'm going to get out of here. I'm sitting in the back seat. The man claiming to be Liu Yingren once again scrambled to his feet, brushing off the dust that had clung to him after his fall. But this time, he didn't charge forward to face the beating. Instead, he seemed like a changed man, reciting a line of classical Chinese as he climbed into the back seat with self-consciousness. Get out. Who are you? Gong Ruohan screamed. Liu Ming, who is this guy? Gong Ruohan pointed at Liu Yingren and demanded to Liu Ming, who had approached him shortly afterwards. Sumi, who was also in the car, barked at Liu Yingren. Although his shrunken form was no larger than a kitten, his aura was formidable. Unfortunately, Sumi's threats seemed to have no effect on a madman. Liu Ming strode forward, intercepting Gong Weixin, who had already drawn his sword and was about to exit the car and approach Liu Yingren, and said, "Those are the two people we just saw. I saved them. Who is he?" Gong Weixin had no problem with Liu Ming's rescue, but this man looked unusual, so she had to ask for his safety. There's something fishy about him, but his strength is still quite good. Probably not much worse than the 3 men under your command, Liu Ming replied, pointing to his head. A rat has skin, but a man has no manners. If a man has no manners, how can he not die? A rat. Liu Yingren, annoyed by Liu Ming's claim of mental problems, began to mutter again. But he had only muttered a few words when Gong Weixin struck him on the head with the blade of her sword, interrupting him. Ignore him. Drive. Get the stuff, and reunite with Ji Zhenrong as soon as possible. Evolved creatures, after all, weren't like vehicles that could run forever as long as they had fuel. Liu Ming had already asked Ji Zhenrong and the visibly exhausted cats to wait for him on the route back to Wuling while he rested and recovered. When the group arrived at the now deserted Villa number 3, Liu Ming gazed out the car window at the nearby complex and was suddenly struck by a sense of eerie gloom. Even though it was morning, with the sun rising, it felt like walking down a spooky, haunted alley at midnight. Did you notice that? Gong Weixin parked the car at the door and turned to look at Liu Ming. Liu Ming nodded slightly, knowing that the eerie feeling wasn't just a figment of his imagination, but a tangible reality. This peculiar feeling, like a blanket of negative energy, was difficult for most people to detect with their 5 senses, but the two, both having awakened their 6th dimensional perception, could feel it vividly. Liu Ming even suspected that he might be encountering the truth behind the tragic deaths of Gong Weixin's entire family in the future. Perhaps those 5 or 6 mutant dogs and several cannibal corpses weren't the real culprits. After all, with the combat power of a dozen heavily armed SWAT officers and an E-level flame awakener, even if they couldn't rescue everyone from the mutant dogs, they could certainly save a few. The owner of this eerie, cold, damp reptile-like atmosphere that coiled around the villa must be the real culprit. First, tell me what you want to retrieve. If it's not important, we won't go in. It's dangerous inside, Liu Ming said sternly, grabbing Gong Ruohan, who was eagerly preparing to get out of the car, completely unaware of the impending danger. Sister? Gong Ruohan looked at her sister with a pitiful expression. Unexpectedly, Gong Weixin shared a similarly serious expression. Ruohan, Mr. Liu is right. Okay, I'll tell you. What we need is the antique camera that my grandmother gave you before she passed away. It's said to have been part of her grandmother's dowry. You later gave it to me for safekeeping when you went to study abroad. Mr. Liu, if it's dangerous inside, could you please have my sister wait outside while I go in and retrieve it? It's an artifact from the Republican era, the only relic my grandmother left behind. It means a lot to my sister and me, Gong Weeksin pleaded solemnly, looking at Liu Ming. Let's go in together. How come this woman, who even the purple main corpse demon couldn't handle, is acting like she's being entrusted with an orphan? Liu Ming said expressionlessly, leading Sumi, and pushing open the villa's iron gate. P.S. Here's the first update. Thanks to my brothers in Mengain and Tanemo for their support. 3 updates today. Please recommend, tip, and support. Chapter 87, Antique Cameras, The Truth of Later Life, Part 2. Gong Weeksin took out her key and twisted the door to the villa. A chilling, icy air blew through everyone's pores like a cold current. The fat cook shuddered and muttered, "Why does this villa feel so eerie, like a haunted house?" Gong Ruohan also shuddered, but continued to look at the fat man with a stern expression and trembled slightly, saying, damn fat man, your house is a haunted house. Why is it so cold all of a sudden? Draw all the curtains." Liu Ming, still calm and composed, frowned at the sight, and ordered as he turned on the living room lights that were still powered on. The only difference between arriving at the villa just over an hour ago and now was that the entire villa was dim. Just as most families draw curtains before a long journey, the Gong family, preparing to relocate their family to the secure area of the armed forces, also drew the curtains in every corner of the villa. The villa's curtains were effective at blocking out light, so without the lights on, the entire villa was shrouded in darkness, as if enveloped by a vast black curtain. Many low-level ghosts, vengeful spirits, and evil spirits can only appear in darkness, otherwise their spirits would be burned by the sun's rays. As everyone moved to draw the curtains, the living room lights suddenly began to vibrate like an earthquake, followed by a crackling sound of electricity. Bang, bang, bang. As the fat cook and Gong Ruohan looked on in unease, the bulbs in the living room's lotus-shaped chandelier exploded one by one. However, Gong Weeksin, Liu Ming, and Luo Yingren remained unmoved, watching the scene expressionlessly. Big brother, this must be a short circuit, right?" the fat cook stammered, startled by the eerie scene. Even before he reached the curtains, his legs felt as if they were weighed down by 1,000 pounds, unable to move an inch. Seeing him hesitate, Liu Ming walked over and reached out to pull back the tightly closed brown curtains at the edge of the living room. At that moment, a strange, chilling wind suddenly emerged from behind Liu Ming, a creepy whistling sound. Snap! Liu Ming's right hand, stretched out to draw the curtains, was struck with a resounding, crisp slapping sound. Playing tricks. Liu Ming shouted coldly, and the fingertips of his right hand, which had been struck, instantly turned a deep crimson and tore towards the back of his hand. If this claw had grasped a solid object, it would most likely have been ripped to shreds by the deadly crimson's terrifying destructive force, just like the pickup truck. However, Liu Ming, as if catching a stream of cold air, instantly shattered it, but it quickly reassembled, seemingly unharmed. Just as Liu Ming's face darkened, and he prepared to attack again, a terrifying, sinister laugh echoed, as if mocking his weakness. Ah! The fat cook and Gong Ruohan screamed in unison, startled by the sudden, creepy grin. Liu Ming stopped pursuing him, snorting coldly and drawing aside the curtains, letting in the sunlight. Though only a few seconds had passed since they'd entered, the sunlight bathing them in a long-awaited feeling, like the warmth of winter sun. As the darkness faded, the terrifying laughter faded, and with it, the chilling, eerie feeling. Big brother, how about I wait outside? There's something strange going on in this room. My legs are so weak I can barely stand. The room had become brighter, so Liu Ming could clearly see the fat cook sweating profusely from fear. "How dare you, fat guy. Look at that four-eyed guy, he's not afraid at all," Gong Ruohan said sarcastically, patting his chest. "How can I compare to him? What's a psychopath afraid of? And you called me a coward, but you've been shouting even louder than me," the fat cook said matter-of-factly. "I'm only 15, what about you?" Gong Ruohan glared at him with disdain. "I'm 15 years old from Liaodong, accustomed to playing the pipa and singing and dancing. Your youth has no excuse for your fear," Luo Yingren said earnestly. "You're sick." Gong Ruohan's scolding seemed to dispel all her fear. "Where's your room?" Liu Ming asked. "Second floor, third room on the left, with a Paddington Bear doll hanging on the door. Gong Ruohan replied. You two go out first. Gong Weeksin and I will go upstairs to get something. Liu Ming decided to let the three of them go first. After all, ordinary people would be hard pressed to defend against the strange attacks of evil spirits. Gong Ruohan objected vehemently to the fat chef's relieved expression. I don't want to stay with these two. What if they are human traffickers and I'm kidnapped? Gong Weeksin frowned, a look of concern rising to her face, but she held back, believing Liu Ming had more to say. I'll have Sumi protect you. Sumi, take them out. Liu Ming declared, and Gong Weeksin rushed upstairs. At Liu Ming's signal, Sumi led the three of them out the villa. As the three and the cat turned, the gate slammed shut with a resounding thud, as if blown by a strong wind. The fat cook screamed again in shock, but this time Gong Ruohan didn't cry out in fear. She trembled, clearly frightened, as she approached the door and turned the handle, trying to open it. The handle did open, but she felt like she was pushing against a wall, not a door. No matter how hard she pushed, the door wouldn't budge. Little girl, get out of the way. Let me do it. The fat man stammered, emboldening himself, and charged at the door. Bang! His corpulent form bounced back, and he scrambled to his feet, his teeth clenched, cursing. What the hell is that security door you have in your house? It's damn strong. The curtains rustled in the wind. Before the door could even be opened, the curtains, which had just been drawn, were swung shut again by a chilling gust of wind, completely blocking out the light from outside and plunging the room into darkness. A chilling woman's wail suddenly erupted from within. Ah! Ah! Two screams, one large and one small, echoed again. Sumi suddenly unshrank from her reduced form and returned to her original form. With a ferocious swipe of her purple tail whip, she ripped the security door and its frame apart, then filed out, carrying the two terrified men and the expressionless Luo Yingren. I thought I heard their screams again. Are they really okay? Gong Weeksin asked, a little worried. After all, his sister was still downstairs. With Sumi here, they'll be fine, Liu Ming said confidently. If there truly was a spirit that even Sumi couldn't handle, it certainly wouldn't be so weak that it wouldn't even dare to touch the sunlight. Gong Weeksin felt a sense of certainty at this. As the two were about to reach the second floor, a figure with long red hair flashed around the corner of the hallway. Did you see that? Gong Weeksin asked, her eyes narrowing slightly. That must be it. Liu Ming nodded and chased in the direction of the figure. Liu Ming had no intention of simply taking the camera and escaping, considering the evil spirit that might kill Gong Weeksin's family in the future. This spirit would never let him leave so easily. It was better to be proactive than to be passive. Furthermore, the red figure seemed to have just walked into Gong Ruohan's room. The plush toy hanging on the door, still shaking and trembling, was proof of this. Liu Ming leaned forward, pushed the door open, and raised his long sword, coated in fiery lava. The firelight revealed a horrifying scene within the room. Old, obviously dated photos were taped to the wall, with streams of blood-red liquid flowing from behind them, appearing even more eerie in the dim light of the fire. Liu Ming, however, remained expressionless upon witnessing this scene. He had encountered at least 80 evil spirits in his later life. Evil spirits were particularly prone to birth in places where evil thoughts converged, and their spiritual matter was extremely precious. He had even spent months in a mass graveyard hunting them. Liu Ming entered the room, and, with a few swipes of his long sword, surveyed every corner of the bedroom. He saw a figure in a red dress, long hair, sitting at the bedside dresser with her back to the door. Slender and well proportioned, the figure's back suggested she was a beauty. But when Liu Ming raised his sword and leaped to strike the figure, the red-dressed figure suddenly turned, a face that would undoubtedly draw a cry of fuck. It was a face as terrifying as that of a disgusting stitched corpse. She smiled at Liu Ming, who was swinging her sword at him. If it weren't for her gaping mouth, stretched to her ears, one might have mistaken it for a kind smile. Her maw was filled with filthy, maggot-like broken teeth. A slender crimson tongue, split into 4 cross-shaped petals, jutted out from that terrifying mouth. Beneath a pair of willow-shaped brows, crescent-shaped eyes lacked eyeballs, but instead, crimson blood continuously flowed from dark, hollow eye sockets. Her neck suddenly stretched, her maw swooping down towards Liu Ming. P.S. This chapter is extended thanks to the donations from the Invincible G Wang, CCCC 1234, and Ajjan Mark 0. Hey brothers, why does it feel like Dragon Breeder is dead? Please let me see your support. Chapter 88 Tears of Redemption, Magic Camera. Bang. The Crimson Maw didn't bite Liu Ming, but instead bit down on Ju Feng's icy blade. The maggot-like fangs biting the blade didn't leave even a white mark, but the bloody mouth was slit open by the blade-like scarlet cloth being torn by scissors. Yet, the monster's horrific wound healed in the blink of an eye. It stretched its neck, gaping, and biting Liu Ming again. This time, Liu Ming didn't strike the monster's mouth with his long sword. Instead, he leaped up and struck down fiercely, threatening to cleave its entire body in two. The monster didn't flinch, biting straight at Liu Ming, as if it didn't care if Liu Ming's blade struck it. The long sword split the monster's head, cleaving it from top to bottom, splitting it in two bloody halves. As Liu Ming's left hand gripped the hilt tightly and swung, his right transformed into crimson fingertips, ready to rip the blood-red figure apart. His right hand, reaching for the figure at top speed, was deflected by an invisible force. The deadly crimson blade missed its target, and he was sent flying, carrying his entire body with him. But the monster had underestimated Liu Ming's strength. He capitalized on the rebounding momentum, swinging his long sword through the air at high speed the moment his body left the ground. The wind wheel technique he'd used to defeat the purple corpse demon's tentacles reappeared, forming a wind wheel of sharp blade that instantly shattered the hideous figure into pieces like ceramic. The blood-red fragments swirled like liquid, quickly fusing and forming again in the blink of an eye. Liu Ming opened his mouth and unleashed a burst of crimson flames, a weakened version of the lava fiery dog's blazing breath. Like a stream of fire, the crimson breath continuously blasted through the liquid and debris on the ground, incinerating them into wisps of red smoke under the intense heat. Liu Ming sneered inwardly. A mere low-level evil spirit dared to withstand my blow. Did it think it was dealing with an ordinary person? How could it be unaware of the evil spirit's extraordinary recovery ability, and how could it allow you to merge and recover so easily? Liu Ming annihilated the evil spirit with lightning speed. Gong Weixin had just rushed through the door, but she also witnessed the monster pounce on Liu Ming and be hacked to pieces. Red smoke woven in the air, eventually forming the silhouette of a classical woman in a crimson wedding dress. This was the remnant of the evil spirit's consciousness after its destruction. Gong Weixin's face was filled with disbelief and shock. This was the second time Liu Ming had seen her undergo such a dramatic change of mood. The last time was when his brother Gong Mancheng nearly died at the hands of mutant dog. Great-great-grandmother? Gong Weixin exclaimed, pulling down a few photos from the wall, the blood no longer flowing, and comparing them to the figure of the woman in the air. Liu Ming's eyes flashed with surprise. He had never expected that the evil spirit that had killed Gong Weixin's family in the future was actually her ancestor. The woman in the bright red wedding dress no longer wore the frightening expression she once had. Instead, she bore a beautiful face somewhat resembling Gong Weixin's. When she heard Gong Weixin call out great-great-grandmother, her dazed expression seemed to regain a touch of clarity. She slowly drifted over, gently embraced Gong Weixin's head, and stroked her hair. I'm sorry. After a long pause, the red-clad figure let out a timeless sigh that seemed to transcend time and space, then transformed into a speck of light and slowly dissipated into the air. When the specks of light vanished, a drop of mysterious substance, resembling a crystal tear, quietly hovered in mid-air. Seeing the vanishing figure, Gong Weixin's eyes flashed with sorrow, and her eyes reddened. Liu Ming, on the other hand, looked incredulous and shocked, and reached out to grasp the crystal tear. However, as if possessed of wisdom, the tear evaded Liu Ming's large hand, and flew into the old camera lying quietly on a nearby wooden table. Great-great-grandmother's Tears of Redemption, that was the name that flashed through Liu Ming's fleeting glimpse. There was no description or function, only a name. But this didn't prevent Liu Ming from knowing the preciousness and wonder of this mysterious substance. The legend of the Maiden's Tears of Redemption, which appeared in later generations, was once universally known throughout the Wuling safe zone. These tears propelled Mu Yangchen, one of the 54 supremes of later generations, from a mere 4th tier professional to a top tier 6th tier evolver in just 6 months, ranking 7th among the 54. Mu Yanshan's impression lived up to his title, a lifelong infatuation, a lifelong despair, hence the nickname Kaiju. He was known as the most stunning man in Wuling, his charisma surpassing Ko Xian Lang's by a hair's breadth, not strength. He had countless female admirers. However, rumors circulated that he had spent his entire life searching for the girl within those tears of redemption. His unsuccessful search had led him to become increasingly taciturn, or rather, mute. It was rumored that he had spoken no more than 10 words in the 10 years since the apocalypse. He often went berserk, mistaking illusory figures for his beloved. As a result, he rejected countless offers of love, living a life of wandering and loneliness like a Puritan. This only heightened his tragic legacy, making him the protagonist of the most tragic story in the Wuling safe zone. However, Liu Ming's thoughts weren't on the countless rumors of his infatuation he'd heard countless times in his later lives. Instead, he lamented the loss of such a priceless treasure, which had vanished before his very eyes like a gust of wind, leaving him no trace. He couldn't even touch it, only to see it slip through his fingers. Ultimately, he could only watch helplessly as it merged into Gong Ruohan's cherished antique camera. Antique Zeiss magic camera, sacred artifact of redemption. This is a 1913 German Zeiss Psychoflex second camera. But when its great-great-grandmother's tears of redemption merged with it, it became more than just another antique camera. Through the magical film, formed by the infusion of energy, the magic camera can store images captured in energy materialized photographs. Liu Ming, who had looked unimpressed after reading the first half of the description, nearly bit his tongue in shock when he read the second half, describing the magical camera's abilities. He quickly grabbed the magical camera and pointed it at the wooden table it sat on, snapping the shutter. A trace of his primordial energy vanished, absorbed into the magical camera, which then snapped its first photo. The wooden table before him vanished, and the image of the same wooden table appeared in the black and white photo in his hand. If that was truly your great-great-grandmother, then she must have given you something truly remarkable. Liu Ming reluctantly handed the camera to the stunned Gong Weixin. He would have loved to have the magical camera, if he had the chance, but now was clearly not the time. Even 10 years after the apocalypse, items with spatial abilities were extremely rare, afforded only by those at least at the 5th level of Nirvana semi-saint. However, the magical camera before him was clearly more than just an ordinary spatial item. Legend has it that items fused with the tears of redemption can continuously evolve. Mu Yanshan's girl's redemption windbreaker was a divine item of redemption, capable of completely defending against 7th tier legendary attacks. Gong Weixin's expression was complicated after accepting the antique camera. Logically, Liu Ming had slain the monster independently. Although the camera's original owner was her, Liu Ming's trophy, the crystal teardrop, had become one with the camera. If he had wanted to take the magical camera for himself, she wouldn't have had much to say. Yet, he had voluntarily returned it to her. Could it be that her impression of him was wrong, and that his coldness and selfishness were merely a prejudice against him? P.S. Here's the third update, fulfilling the extra update I promised my friends the other day for reaching 5,000 recommendations. The prototype for Kaiju Mu Yanshan is 99.8, our friend in the group. Haha, it seems 99.8 never spoke more than 10 sentences in our group. A certain air of mysterious man. Thanks again to 99.8, gentleman from the men's tribe, and Tanemo for the recommendation red envelopes from the other day. I would also like to thank CCCC1234, gentleman of the men's tribe, stepping on small fish in the suburbs, and how lonely it is to be invincible heavy for their support. Good night everyone. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89. A talented woman returns to the storm. Liu Ming ignored Gong Weixin's thoughts and instead held the photo with the image of the table, wondering how to get the table out. If the magic camera could only store items in the photo, but couldn't retrieve them, then this ability was too tricky and unreasonable. Just when Liu Ming was at his wit's end and could only tentatively use his 6th dimensional perception to touch the photo, to transmit the consciousness of retrieving the item. There was a thud of something heavy falling to the ground, and the thin photo slowly expanded, as if it were transformed into a wooden table, appearing before him. I wonder if the destruction of the photo will also destroy the items inside? Liu Ming's heart flickered with joy, and he thought of various possibilities, but then shook his head to get rid of the thoughts in his mind. He should get out now, as he would have plenty of time to explore the magic camera's functions later. At that moment, the chilly, eerie feeling that had lingered in their hearts vanished completely with the death of the evil spirit. Liu Ming casually drew aside the curtains in Gong Ruohan's bedroom to let in the sunlight, then slowly said, "Let's go." "Okay, wait a minute," Gong Weixin replied as she gathered up the old photos scattered around the room, carefully placing the damaged ones into a yellowed album that seemed equally steeped in history. Not a drop of the blood-red liquid that had previously flowed from behind the photos was visible now. Just a series of ordinary old photos brimming with Republican-era style, making the previous terrifying experiences seem like nothing more than a fleeting dream. With a click, Gong Weixin, likewise, packed up the album and other belongings in the room with her magic camera. She also went to her own room and took magical photos of all her clothes. From her dresser drawer, a standing glass frame containing a wedding photo in Republican-era attire was placed on the table by the window. Gong Weixin softly said goodbye, and the two of them turned and left. However, as they left the room, they failed to notice the black and white wedding photo from the Republican era. The woman, previously smiling happily in wedding attire, suddenly twitched in horror, a strange grin forming as she watched them leave. "Sister, you're finally out. Is there a ghost in our house? It was fine before, but I was so scared." Seeing Gong Weixin and Liu Ming leave, Gong Ruohan, who had been clinging to Sumi's head, suddenly let go and rushed over to hug her, a look of fear on her face. "It's okay. Something strange happened, and it's been resolved." Gong Weixin sighed softly, ultimately deciding not to reveal the story of her great-great-grandmother's transformation into an evil spirit. After all, in the hearts of the two sisters, their great-great-grandmother, Lan Zuhu, had always been a role model for them. Her name is often found in books about the Republican era. As a talented woman, Lan Zuhu was renowned throughout southern China in the early 20th century for her exceptional talent and proficiency in swordsmanship, a remarkable woman of both literary and martial prowess. My aunt's swordsmanship was passed down from my grandmother, who inherited it from my great-grandmother, who inherited it from my great-great-grandmother, Lan Zuhu. But as the saying goes, beautiful women are often short-lived. My great-great-grandmother died young, before she was even 30. Rumors circulated that this remarkable woman, both talented in literature and martial arts, had been shot in her own home during an armed uprising. Several of the assailants had similarly died from bullets shot directly through their mouths, piercing their brains. They showed no signs of struggle, as if they had committed suicide. Because my great-great-grandmother was a prominent figure in southern Hunan at the time, the murder of 6 or 7 people sparked widespread controversy, with mentions of it in various Republican-era archives. Could it be that tragedy that caused my great-great-grandmother to transform into an evil spirit? Sister, what happened? We've lived in this villa for over a decade, and nothing's wrong with it. What could possibly be so strange? Gong Ruohan demanded, interrupting Gong Weixin's recollections and speculations. No, nothing strange. Don't ask. Gong Weixin clearly hadn't said she was panicking. The cold, icy woman actually stuttered at the question. Gong Weixin worried that her sister wouldn't be able to bear the shock of knowing that the person she had admired most since childhood had turned into a demon. Seeing Gong Ruohan still asking, Liu Ming frowned and said coldly, "Get in the car, or I'll take you back to the armed forces." This statement finally calmed Gong Ruohan, who was used to being a spoiled brat. Gong Weixin breathed a sigh of relief, glanced at Liu Ming with gratitude, then got into the driver's seat of the Hummer, started the engine, and prepared to drive away. Watching Liu Ming carrying the shrunken Sumi into the car, the fat chef, eager to pull Liu Yingren into the back seat, asked curiously, "Brother, are you leaving Jialing?" The fat chef asked curiously as he watched the Hummer drive out of Jialing County. "Why, are you going back?" Liu Ming asked. "No, big brother, you misunderstood. I'm not from Xiangnan to begin with. My family is in Guilin." I just wanted to ask where you're going, the fat cook said hopefully. Wuling. Hearing the answer, the fat man looked a little disappointed, but he immediately returned to his usual chatty self. Big brother, I haven't introduced myself yet. My name is Jinsideo. Don't look at my fatness now. Before I became a chef, I was a boxer. In the short time Liu Ming hadn't even reunited with Zedong and the giant cats waiting in the suburbs, Jinsideo had already rattled off his life story, making Gong Ruohan laugh so hard that tears welled up in his eyes. Ha ha ha, fat guy, you said you won runner-up in the youth division of the Guyuan provincial boxing competition? I was so happy when I got the trophy and went home that I jumped up and down and fell off an overpass and broke my leg. So I can't continue boxing. My grades were so bad that I couldn't get into high school, so I had to learn cooking and become a chef. How can you be so stupid and funny? You're really making me laugh to death. Gong Ruohan laughed so hard that he almost got a stitch in the side. Ruohan, picking on people's shortcomings isn't a good habit. Gong Weeksin, in the driver's seat, suppressed a smile as she sternly reprimanded her younger sister. She had always been indulgent with her sister, but she didn't want Gong Ruohan, whose mind wasn't yet fully mature, to develop a bad temper. No problem, Jinsi said. The fat man was clearly good-tempered, showing no sign of irritation at the girl's harmless words. Ha ha ha, I get it, Cs. I won't pick on him again. How come you didn't see the limp you were walking with, you idiot? Gong Ruohan, clearly unfazed by her ever-loving sister, continued to tease Jinsi with a perfunctory tone. Gong Ruohan, do you want to die? Gong Weeksin slammed on the brakes, stopped the car, and turned around, yelling, I know, Cs. I'll behave. Seeing Gong Weeksin's outburst, Gong Ruohan's playful expression quickly turned into an obedient, aggrieved look as he looked at her pitifully. The sudden braking startled both the fat man and Gong Ruohan, before Gong Weeksin snorted and started the car again. As for Liu Ming, he remained calm and composed. The psychotic Luo Yingren seemed completely unaware of fear, constantly reaching out to tease Sumi's purple tail, enjoying the numerous red marks on his face from Sumi's powerful whipping. My leg bone was broken and reattached later. I can't do strenuous exercise, let alone high-intensity collisions like whip kicks, or it'll break again. Fortunately, it doesn't affect my ability to walk, Jinsideo replied to Gong Ruohan, after recovering from the shock of the sudden braking. Big brother, are these monsters really okay with us? Jinsideo asked fearfully, his jaws trembling as he watched the giant cats and the largest, most ferocious beast, Zedong, running around the Hummer outside the window. Hey, Fatty Jin, you used to be a boxer too. Why are you so cowardly? These are Liu Ming's pets, they won't eat you. Gong Ruohan, oblivious to his initial experience with Zedong, whose face had turned pale with fear, offered a seasoned explanation. After being called fatty and crippled, he formally designated Fatty Jin as the Jinsideo Golden Temple Deo name. I fight people, not these invincible monsters. Brother, are you a beast tamer? Fatty Jin finally regained his composure upon hearing this, but stared at Liu Ming in shock. Liu Ming ignored him, his eyes flickering with memories. Beast tamer, such a distant profession in his memory. The Hummer sped along the highway at an average speed of 80 to 90 miles per hour, like a beast galloping across the grasslands. In less than an hour, they reached the outskirts of Wuling. As they entered Wuling City and were about to return to the train station, they suddenly realized that, in just one morning, the entire city had been enveloped in a tense atmosphere of impending storm. Loudspeakers were broadcasting a single message throughout the city. The government and military have established a safe zone. In 3 days, military special police will escort survivors to the safe zone at designated locations. All survivors are being called upon to proceed to designated safe transfer points as soon as possible and prepare for their transfer. Along the way, Liu Ming witnessed waves of survivors, ignoring the monster's threats and risking their lives in small groups to reach the so-called designated safe transfer points, only to be torn to pieces and devoured by roaming monsters before they had even made it far. P.S. Here's a first update. I had a meeting all morning, so this one's a little late. I also wrote this up while up at noon, so I hope you'll forgive me. Thanks to Jingsheng and me, my 2 brothers from Taiwan, for your support. Please recommend, reward, and support me. Chapter 90, Citywide Broadcast, Global Doomsday. Witnessing these tragic scenes of monsters devouring people, Liu Ming stopped Gong Weeksin from stopping the train to save them, arguing that the train station was even more dangerous. However, a glint of gloom flashed in his eyes. The news had probably thrown Treehouse Square into chaos. Besides repeatedly broadcasting information about safe spots and evacuation plans, the city's radio stations also occasionally interrupted with segments on the origins of the apocalypse and the basic characteristics of various monsters, hoping to slightly increase the survivors' chances of survival. All citizens who hear the broadcast, please do not panic. Although the threat of the end of the world is approaching each of us, as long as we can unite as one, human civilization will definitely be able to rise again from the ruins of the end of the world. Please believe that all survivors will never abandon the people. Please all citizens remember the content of the broadcast, because radio communications are interfered with by a mysterious strong magnetic field. These are various broadcasting points set up for all surviving citizens under the protection of government military soldiers, risking attacks from countless monsters. They will only broadcast for 1 day, repeatedly, and only for 1 day. This is a global disaster. Not only in the Wuling area, the entire country and even the entire world are now in an unprecedented huge crisis. The broadcast was occasionally accompanied by fierce gunfire. The monsters were probably attracted by the sound source and attacked the radio-armed convoy that was broadcasting back and forth throughout the city, attracting a counterattack from the guard troops accompanying the vehicles. Countless citizens tragically perished in this crisis, transformed into crazed zombies whose sole appetite was food. These zombies were named cannibals by national researchers. The characteristics of cannibals are, first, gluttony. Driven by their insane appetite, they will prey on all flesh and blood, primarily humans. Second, their pain nerves are necrotized. Unless their brains are completely destroyed, their attacks will never cease. Third, they are starved. Cannibals can be divided into 2 forms, hungry and well-fed. A hungry cannibal's aggression and bloodlust increase significantly, while a well-fed cannibal is not very aggressive towards living creatures. If a survivor encounters a hungry cannibal, desperately running away isn't the best strategy. A hungry cannibal will chase you until you're exhausted, then tear you apart, exhausted and nearly unable to resist. Only by actively responding can you have a chance of survival. If you encounter a well-fed cannibal, run away madly. In this state, if it can't catch up with you, it will give up. The best way to distinguish between the 2 states of a cannibal corpse is to observe its eyes. A well-fed cannibal corpse's eyes appear blood red, while a hungry cannibal corpse's eyes are covered in dark red bloodshot. Aside from the cannibal corpse, its secondary mutated form is even more dangerous and deadly. If you encounter one, all ordinary citizens should disperse and flee as quickly as possible to avoid being slaughtered. There are currently 6 types of mutant cannibal corpses discovered: the swift mutant, the agile mutant, the powerful mutant, the deformed mutant, the capable mutant, and the lord mutant. Their characteristics are as follows. Aside from the threat of the cannibal corpse, humanity is facing an even more terrifying threat. Countless spatial wormholes have appeared across the earth, and with the spatial cracks that appear with the wormholes, all kinds of unimaginable and terrifying monsters swarm out of the cracks. Wuling City is currently facing the main threats of 3 monsters from different time and space: the Abyss, Hell, and Purgatory. Any monster from any other dimension is not something ordinary citizens can deal with. Please remember their characteristics. Their appearance characteristics are respectively: lesser demon. Any citizen who sees any of the above monsters, please flee immediately. I repeat, flee immediately if you see them. Amidst the broadcasts from the radio, fleets circling the city, Liu Ming and his group finally arrived at the train station. By then, the Treehouse Plaza was deserted, but a clamor emanated from the waiting hall. Even Liu Ming and his companions, who had just entered the square, could sense the clamor. Are you trying to confuse us? The government announcement said we should rendezvous at the safe transfer point as soon as possible, yet you're stopping us here. A tall, muscular man, veins throbbing in his neck, waved his thick arms with rage, shouting fiercely at Marjan and the others guarding the ticket hall entrance, who remained unmoved by his words. Everything will be decided after our boss returns, Marjan said, expressionless, looking at the man. Wait. We've been waiting all morning. How much longer do we have to wait? A sturdy man standing with the leader retorted with an annoyed look. That's right. You just need to drive us to a safe place. You can come back on your own if you want. Fuck you. Who the hell are you? You want us to drive you to a safe place, but you can't just walk. Liu Huchuan was the first to curse. You're in charge of the car, and you expect thousands of us to walk there? The man who had spoken retorted. That's right. If you don't want to, that's fine. Hand over the keys, and we'll have someone who can drive. Another man immediately joined him in support. To them, the only ones who had saved them were Liu Ming and Gong Weixin, and the people who were blocking them weren't much better than them. You know we are in charge of the car. We found it, so what right do you have to use it? You want it? Go find it yourself. Gu Yun, who had always been at odds with Liu Huchuan, now sided with him. Just keep quiet. Let's talk about this after we get back. Li Sangtao, watching the increasingly tense atmosphere between the two sides, like a powder keg about to ignite, quickly tried to stop the others from shouting back at Gu Yun. Old Li, I respected you as a man in the shelter, but you know the situation now. The government has already taken action, and everyone's hope of survival has been revealed. Are you still going to stay in this shabby place, fearing? Anyway, I've had enough. We must all reach safety before the government evacuates the survivors. Otherwise, it's all over for everyone. Isn't that right, everyone? The leading man said, stirringly. That's right, we must get there as soon as possible. Don't stop us. We are only truly safe where the government troops are. Hand over your car keys immediately. We can't wait any longer. We're leaving now. The crowd erupted in excitement, and everyone rushed towards the dozen or so spell warriors blocking the door. Who wants to leave? An emotionless voice echoed from the hall door behind the spell warriors. Then, a purple figure flew over the crowd, blocking the spell warriors. With a seemingly effortless sweep of its long tail, the entire crowd pressing towards the door was swept back like sacks. Liu Ming, accompanied by Gong Weixin and the others, slowly walked in from the door. P.S. This update was extended thanks to the tips from my brothers Juha, Yair and Renlian, Shuiao 201803301134399912, and Fanny thanks to my brothers in Mengayan, Wipe, and Rang Chang Menghu for their tips and support. Another week is coming to an end, brothers. Please recommend, tip, and support me. Chapter 91 Liu Ming harms people and builds walls to store food. Boss, you're finally back. If you don't come back, these ungrateful guys will probably cause chaos. Liu Huchuan exclaimed in surprise upon seeing Liu Ming slowly approach. Who's leaving? Liu Ming didn't reply, instead coldly observing the crowd collapsing. Those crowding through the door comprised nearly half of the thousands of people brought back yesterday. Another half, like the young woman with her daughter, simply watched from afar, not coming closer. We're leaving. Are you still planning to illegally detain thousands of us here? We are not on good terms anyway, so let's part ways amicably. We don't need you to send us off. Just give us the car keys, and we'll drive to safety. The leading man, though intimidated by Liu Ming's aura, gritted his teeth, climbed to his feet, and stated firmly that he didn't believe Liu Ming could do anything to him in front of thousands of people. Of course, his confidence stemmed from the fact that these people, led by Gong Weixin, had only experienced the brutal battles between humans and monsters, not the equally dangerous apocalyptic human-to-human warfare. Liu Ming's eyes darkened at this. This guy kept talking about thousands of people. Did he really think he represented them? He could only represent the few who had joined forces to lead the riot. He was clearly a troublemaker. He even dared to ask for his car keys. Few people in the future would take his things from him without his consent, let alone these few. Marjan, who were the ones shouting the loudest just now. Bring them out. Liu Ming's tone was somewhat hostile. Upon hearing this, Marjan immediately led his men into the crowd and pulled out 7 or 8 people. What are you doing? Let go. Let go. We are just leaving. As they were completely defenseless in Mo Yunzhen's grasp, dragged out by the neck and collar like chickens, their eyes finally frantically began to shout and scream. You ate. Tell me why you're leaving. Liu Ming tried to soften his icy face, but in his heart, he already considered the 8 people dead. We can't even get enough to eat here. We've only had half a bun and a small sausage since yesterday. That's right. The government troops must have plenty of food. We won't starve. Besides, it's all open air here, without even a shelter. It's even less hidden than our previous underground shelter. What if a monster attacks us? Where are we? You're strong, but what if you're not here? We're all doomed. The 8 people went on to criticize Liu Ming's makeshift gathering place. Liu Ming sneered inwardly. The government troops did have plenty of food, but not a single grain belonged to them. The safe zone provided 3 meals a day for the first week, 2 meals a day in the second week, 1 meal a day in the third week, and no food at all after a month. All survivors had to earn their own food through labor, but for ordinary people, even if they worked themselves to death, they wouldn't even get a single meal a day. Eating half full and starving while doing physically demanding work like building walls, digging trenches, and constructing bunkers was a norm for most people. As for safety, 6 months before the establishment of the safe zone, before the tens of meter high wall known as Wu Ling's fortress was built, numerous monsters slipped into the zone daily. It would be a miracle if 100 or 80 people didn't die in the safe zone on any given day. Because the safe zone, housing over 100,000 people, attracted the majority of the monsters' attention, the scattered gathering places of survivors were relatively safer. However, food and safety, as they mentioned, were indeed 2 separate issues, and it was precisely to address these 2 that Liu Ming had rushed back. The 8 of them can go. The others stay here, and we'll make a decision tomorrow. If anyone causes trouble, kill them immediately. Just like that. Liu Ming said coldly to Ma Jun. His right arm suddenly extended, leaping out like a blood-red python. With such speed, he grabbed the leader's neck, lifting him off the ground, and slamming his head into the several meter high ceiling of the waiting hall. Seeing the man's breathlessness and crimson face, Liu Ming finally let go and dropped him. That's right, he let go from the ceiling, letting him fall straight to the ground. Hey, are you okay? I was just kidding. You can leave now. Follow me, and I'll give you a car. Liu Ming said with what he considered a rather benign smile, looking at the terrified man as he scrambled to his feet. I told you 8 to follow me. Are you deaf? Liu Ming turned and walked out of the hall, noticing the people behind him still hesitantly, and suddenly shouted in a snarling voice. His crimson arms, like a ghostly, ferocious presence, frightened the 8 people so much that they shuddered and followed him obediently. Liu Ming, what are you going to do with them? Gong Weixin asked, a hint of concern etched in her eyes. She didn't think Liu Ming would let the 8 people escape unscathed. She was even more afraid they would die the moment they left. What? You think I'm going to kill them? I'm really going to let them go. If you don't believe me, just follow me. Liu Ming replied with a smile. Gong Weixin followed, still looking uneasy. She finally breathed a sigh of relief when Liu Ming actually put the 8 people in a van and drove off, returning with Ji Zilirang and Su Mi. Her worries were well founded. From the moment those 8 dared to ask Liu Ming for a car, they were already half dead in his eyes. As the van pulled out of the train station square, 3 cannibal corpses, which Liu Ming had manipulated after using the overlord brain core, suddenly staggered out of a roadside shop. Their mouths were bloody, and bits of flesh still clung to their teeth, as if they had just gnawed on something. Their rotting faces were filled with ferocity as they chased the van. As they continued to pursue, more and more monsters followed the van, forcing the 8 people in it to speed up. After the van had driven nearly 10 kilometers, navigating a sharp curve without slowing down, a swift, dark figure suddenly lunged at it from the side, slamming the van's front end sideways with immense force. Bang! The van was knocked sideways on the high-speed curve, tumbling several times, before crashing into the concrete guardrail beside the road, denting it and shattering the front end. The driver's forehead slammed against the windshield, bleeding profusely. Everyone in the car, wounded and in agony, was unable to exit the vehicle in time. A horde of cannibals followed behind, each one swarming with bloodlust, rushing towards the van. Terrifying, desperate screams echoed from the van. Meanwhile, Liu Ming, armed with the magical camera he'd borrowed from Gong Weixin, rode Su Mi and headed straight for warehouse number 9. he realized that 3 of the cannibal's minions had caught up with the van and were beginning to feed, and his face turned cold. It's fine if he doesn't repay his life-saving favor, but to still push for more is simply asking for trouble. Upon reaching warehouse number 9, 2 gargoyles, perched like statues on the roof, immediately descended and followed their master. "No one's been here before?" Liu Ming asked. After receiving an affirmative answer, Liu Ming produced his key, unlocked the small door, and stepped inside. Click, click, click. Under the flashlight, bags of flour, rice, and other supplies rapidly transformed into magical photographs. Liu Ming had by now figured out the magic camera's function. First, its storage capacity for each photo had a limit. If he tried to fill the entire warehouse with it, the resulting photos would be mediocre. This limit was roughly the size of a bedroom, and it was extremely energy intensive. With his current energy reserves, he could only take 20 or 30 photos a day before reaching his limit. With the sound of shutter clicks, Liu Ming had finally cleared nearly 1/6 of the first floor of the 4-story warehouse. Satisfied, he closed the iron door and left. Before leaving, Liu Ming carefully placed a dozen magical photos in his arms. Through previous experiments, he had discovered another characteristic of the magical photos: if damaged to a certain degree, the mysterious storage space within would become extremely unstable, and the items within could suddenly appear. Therefore, he was now extremely cautious when handling the magical photos, fearing they would be torn or crushed by the sudden weight of tens or even hundreds of tons of supplies. 2 gargoyles flew to the rooftops and stood there. Their mission was to guard the warehouse until all the supplies were moved. After a glance at the gargoyles, Liu Ming rode Sumi to another location, the brickyard. His previous sacrifice had granted him a special professional scroll. With a large amount of bricks and stones, he might be able to build a solid wall around the entire train station, ensuring everyone's safety. A wall-like barrier would at least provide them with a sense of psychological security. Moments later, the piles of bricks piled up in the brickyard instantly transformed into a dozen magical photos. PS. Here's a first update. Thanks to Zinmengayan, 998, Yuha, Tanmo, Zeshamawang, Jintaze Guoda, and Bookfriend 2017070601112865 for their support. Brothers, it's the weekend, and the recommendation ranking is about to end. Please recommend, reward, and support. Chapter 92, Craftsman Occupation, Ashes and Walls. Gong Ruohan, I'm asking you one last time. Do you really want to change to this class? Liu Ming asked solemnly, gazing at Gong Ruohan, whose face was filled with excitement and eagerness. Upon his return, he gathered the entire team's core members, hoping to select one member who hadn't yet evolved to the special class he had obtained through sacrifice after the battle against the lava-scorching hound. Unexpectedly, while everyone was still carefully considering it, Gong Ruohan suddenly jumped out, crying and clamoring for this class change. After all, this was a construction craftsman type support class, not the most esteemed combat class, not even a mainstream support class. It was simply a rather unpopular craftsman class. But in Liu Ming's plan, this support class's role was even greater than that of several combatants. Therefore, he didn't just hand Gong Ruohan the class change scroll directly, but carefully questioned her several times. I really really want it. Liu Ming, please stop asking, just give it to me. Gong Ruohan replied with an exaggerated expression. But you'll be returning to Jialing in half a year. This job changing grace is incredibly valuable. Wouldn't I lose everything? Liu Ming asked, changing the subject. Then I won't go back. Liu Ming, as long as you give it to me. My dream is to become an architect, build a huge castle, and become a princess. Now only you can make my dream come true. Please promise me, okay? Gong Ruohan pleaded. Mr. Liu, you should leave this scroll to someone else. My sister isn't suitable. Gong Weixin quickly spoke up upon hearing her sister's promise not to return to Jialing. I don't want it. Wow, sister, you once supported my dream of becoming an architect, and now even you're undermining me. I might as well just jump and die. With that, Gong Ruohan ran out of the treehouse villa. Alright, I promise. Gong Weixin, who usually couldn't handle her sister on matters that didn't involve principle, rubbed her forehead with a headache. Liu Ming, can you agree to this now? Gong Ruohan's expression suddenly changed, from a doleful one to a beaming one. She immediately turned and ran in. There's another thing you need to consider. Everyone can only have one class. Even if you upgrade your class in the future, you can only switch to a similar class of the same type. This means if you choose a support class, it'll be difficult to move into a combat class later. Liu Ming asked one last time. That's what I want. I don't want to fight or kill. I want to build a castle and live a quiet life there. Gong Ruohan's face was filled with determination and anticipation. Then give it to you. Liu Ming nodded and handed over the parchment scroll like class change grace. He also saw that the other key members had little interest in this class that barely increased their actual combat effectiveness and was even somewhat useless. Rather than giving this class change grace to someone unwilling to accept it, it would be better to give it to Gong Ruohan. Although she was only 15, her scolding was nothing like a 15-year-old girl. Class: Flame Barrier Craftsman. Potential: Tier 3 SSS. Rank description: this mysterious craftsman class, a branch of the barrier craftsman, masters the secrets of flame and the runes of fire, allowing them to infuse any structure with the power of fire. Their flame power not only melts impurities from building materials, strengthening the walls, but also imbues the structure with the properties of fire, repelling any attack that comes into contact with the structure. In the hands of a flame barrier craftsman, all building materials are forged by flames into flame crystal rock, one of the finest building materials. Gong Ruohan joyfully accepted the divine grace of her class advancement and was instantly enveloped in a blazing orange-red glow. As she emerged from the flames, her hands, like those of a flame power user, were enveloped in a blazing orange-red flame, filling the tree house with scorching heat. With the intense heat of this flame, even without other combat abilities or experience, one's strength would undoubtedly be far superior to that of an ordinary person. At the very least, they would be more than capable of defending themselves against ordinary monsters. For example, Luo Yingren and Jinsi Dao, whom they had previously encountered, could certainly be reduced to torches in a single blow. Follow me, Liu Ming instructed Gong Ruohan, who was waving his flame-encrusted hands with curiosity, and then walked out. Across the street from the treehouse plaza, on the sidewalk lined with bloodthirsty sawtooth vines and ancient war trees, Liu Ming produced a magical photo. Clatter. Like a rain of bricks, half a room's worth of bricks fell before the crowd. The items in the magical photo didn't have to be retrieved all at once. Using 6th dimensional perception, they could be retrieved in batches. After quickly stacking 100 or so bricks into a wall 1 meter wide and 1 meter high, Liu Ming said to the still excited Gong Ruohan, use your abilities to try to build a wall with these bricks. The shape and form are up to you. My only requirement is that it be strong and sturdy enough to keep out monsters. Alright. To everyone's astonishment, the neatly arranged red bricks seamlessly fused together under Gong Ruohan's orange-red flames, like crystals. Then, the rough red clay bricks showed signs of melting into crystals. When the brick's surface had become as solid as crystalline rock, Gong Ruohan paused. I've reached my limit. Look. She tilted her head back, looking at Liu Ming with a look of delight. Liu Ming slowly extended his right hand toward the wall, which had already taken on a red crystalline appearance. Gong Ruohan suddenly shouted, don't touch it. It's dangerous. Liu Ming ignored him and continued to reach for the red crystalline wall. Wow. A stream of orange-red flame, identical to the one on Gong Ruohan's hand, suddenly erupted from the wall, its scorching flames licking Liu Ming's right hand. The instant the flames licked it, Liu Ming's right hand churned, as if transformed from flesh and blood into liquid, resisting the intense heat. While the liquid didn't evaporate under the intense heat, some of it was reduced to white ash. But when Liu Ming withdrew his hand from the wall, a surge of crimson liquid washed over it, and his right hand returned to its original state, showing no trace of burns. Liu Ming could sense the white ash clinging to the wall, a special substance formed by the intense flames burning the blood in his crimson hand. Are you okay, Liu Ming? Gong Ruohan asked worriedly. I'm fine. What's this? Liu Ming waved his hand to indicate he was fine, then asked in surprise. It's called the Ash Wall. It burns anything it touches to ash, absorbing the ash to increase the wall's thickness, strength, and flame power. That's one of the 2 abilities this class grants me, Gong Ruohan explained. Wouldn't we be hurt if we touched it, too? Liu Ming frowned. If his men fought on the wall, wouldn't that be a double-edged sword? No, it won't. Only the ash wall side will hurt the enemy. The other side can be built into a regular flame crystal rock wall. Gong Ruohan felt a little embarrassed. She had only wanted to test her abilities when she melted the inward-facing side into the ash wall, nearly causing Liu Ming to get hurt. How long would it take you to build an ash wall 4 meters high and 30 centimeters thick, encircling the entire square? Liu Ming was relatively satisfied with this answer. His men could attack from within the wall, while enemies outside, unable to penetrate it, would still be damaged, even if they touched it. This was no less effective than having numerous arrow towers, or firing embrasures on the wall. The workload is probably 30,000 to 40,000 times that of this small wall. Liu Ming added, fearing that Gong Ruohan would not understand the specific meaning of enclosing the entire square. If you can lay all these bricks for me, and let me just weld them, it will probably take more than half a month. Gong Ruohan was shocked by the number at first, then he counted carefully on his fingers for a long time before answering. P.S. Here is the second update. This update is for the rewards from the 2 brothers gentlemen of the men's tribe Banjuha last week. Thank you to the 4 brothers gentlemen of the men's tribe, Ice Angel, 99.8, and Ziwei Sword Boy I for their awards and support. I also thank the brothers on Questions Reading for their support. There are more, and more brothers on Questions Reading. Although Fengsha cannot see a lot of the data in the background, Fengsha will often go to Questions Reading to follow the brothers in the future. Thank you all. Brothers, the week is about to end, and I have one last request. Please recommend, please reward, and please support. Chapter 93. Everyone moves bricks, builds a wall in 3 days. If we just simply weld them together, without melting them into flame crystal rock, how long will it take? Liu Ming frowned, unsatisfied with the timeline. The situation in the apocalypse is ever changing. Half a month might seem short in peacetime, but in the apocalypse, it could be the entire history of a team's creation and destruction. If we just need to maintain a stable weld, Liu Ming, if you can lay all the bricks for me, it'll only take 3 days. Gong Ruohan calculated for a moment before answering, flexing her fingers, delicate and white like peeled onions. So fast? Hearing this, everyone was a little surprised. From half a month to 3 days, the time had been shortened several times. Of course, I have help, Gong Ruohan replied triumphantly. She extended her right hand, as if waving into the air, and 2 round, orange-red flames appeared out of thin air, whirring and flying towards Gong Ruohan. As the 2 figures, smaller than newborn babies, flew over, everyone finally got a clear look at them. They resembled 2 elves made entirely of fire. Their appearance resembled chubby human babies, but they had a pair of plump orange wings on their backs, and their bodies were shrouded in orange flames, like miniature versions of Cupid. What are these? Everyone exclaimed in astonishment. Needless to say, these 2 little creatures look truly impressive. These are my assistants, and they'll be my 2 younger brothers from now on. Don't bully them, just because they're not human. Gong Ruohan bared his fangs, gnashing his teeth and speaking threateningly. The flames on the 2 little figures seemed to lack any warmth. One lay on Gong Ruohan's shoulder, the other clutched her hair, refusing to let go. Gong Ruohan, seemingly unfazed by the burning sensation, wore an expression like she was playing with a pet, enjoying the 2 figures' playfulness. Liu Ming's eyes flashed with surprise, and he used his clairvoyance to look over. Gong Ruohan, occupation, fiery barrier craftsman, level, 1st stage F, potential, 3rd stage SSS, abilities, ash wall, fire rune, talents, fiery art spirit, fiery architecture, specialties, blazing domain, smelting flame crystal. Description: they are the darlings of the flame, artists of fire, masters of architecture. They are masters of construction, especially in barrier building. Through their refinement and secondary transformation, any ordinary material or structure can be transformed into a work of art. As expected, this craftsman profession is quite remarkable, possessing the gift of summoning an art spirit. Liu Ming was secretly astonished. These two little beings must be the fiery art spirits with the power of clairvoyance. He had heard of these creatures, called art spirits, in later generations. They generally appear as assistants to craftsmen, providing significant assistance in production and construction. It's no exaggeration to say that the efficiency and quality of the work of craftsmen with and without art spirits are vastly different. In the safe zones of the future, all artisans possessing the spirit of art as their assistants were renowned and highly respected. Gong Ruohan couldn't help but sigh. A fool's luck is his own. If this class transferring divine grace, capable of summoning the spirit of art, were to appear in the future, its value to many large teams would likely be no less than that of ordinary, mid-level class transferring divine graces with only rank 4 potential. Have K Junran prepare the food. Also, call over the fat guy I brought back. He seems to be a cook and should be able to help with the cooking. Liu Ming turned to Marjun and prepared to take Sumi to search for tools. After lunch, everyone would begin their own wall building projects, and they would quickly gather tools for transporting bricks and digging the foundation. At noon, in the makeshift kitchen at Treehouse Square, K Junran and Fatty Jin used the rice Liu Ming had brought back, along with some ham, eggs, and vegetables, to simply make several large pots of Yang's Hao fried rice, enough for 1,000 people. Though the dishes were simple, the aromas, prepared by 2 skilled chefs, were enough to whet the hunger of the crowd's appetites. For this meal, Liu Ming didn't order food rations to be distributed among everyone, but instead provided everyone with a full meal. This moved many of the thousands of newly rescued people, many of whom hadn't had a full meal in a week, almost to tears. Those who had participated in the morning's riots felt particularly guilty. But as they put down their bowls and chopsticks, they realized their shame was completely unfounded. Eat your fill, everyone. Once you're full, I can explain why I'll let you eat. Liu Ming's voice remained cold, so cold that any lingering gratitude towards him instantly vanished, especially with his next words. Didn't someone raise the issue of the safety of our survivor gathering place this morning? So I've decided to build a high wall around the train station. The reason I'm feeding you is because from now on, none of you are idlers, just waiting to eat. Everyone must pick up their tools and join me in building the wall. If you want to slack off, you can spend the night chewing mud and eating ashes. Not even a grain of rice in the pot belongs to you. Liu Ming was somewhat surprised after he finished speaking. He had expected a lot of opposition, but he was met with total silence. In reality, the brutal scene of Liu Ming strangling the leader half to death that morning had already terrified everyone, and they dared not say anything more. Furthermore, Liu Ming's suggestion that those who wanted to leave could make their decision tomorrow gave those who wanted to leave a glimmer of hope. They hoped they could survive today, receive the car keys from Liu Ming, and head to a safe location. After all, the relocation was still 2.5 days away. There was no need to offend this evil spirit over an afternoon of hard labor. It was clear that the masses were quite wise. Very good, you're all very considerate. Marjun, bring me the tools and distribute them to them. Shovels, wheelbarrows, and wooden ladders were distributed to every survivor. In Liu Ming's place, there was no distinction between men and women, young and old, or even between rich and poor. Aside from the few children who were of no help and only added to the chaos, who were allowed to rest, everyone was required to carry bricks for him. Liu Ming even kindly distributed work gloves he'd scavenged from a shopping mall, sparing their hands the pain of being rubbed bloody from carrying bricks. Led by the search leaders and team members, everyone headed towards the area where Liu Ming had piled bricks, as if heading to her execution ground. Their task was simple. After Ji Rang used his earth-based abilities to break up the solid ground, they would place the bricks one by one, then shovel in the dirt to create a foundation at least 1.5 meters deep. They would then stack the above ground area to at least 4 meters, and finally, Gong Ruohan would melt all the bricks to form the rough outline of a solid ash wall. The dozen or so children who were only a few years old among the survivors were all handed over to the care of K Junran and the other girls who had followed Liu Ming the earliest, but had not acquired the magic seal ability or profession. They were also the only ones who did not have to move bricks to build the wall. Everyone else, even Fatty Jin and Luo Yingren, The two survivors Liu Ming had picked up along the way all obediently wore white work gloves, held shovels, pushed carts and followed the crowd to the piles of bricks. P.S. The first update is here. Thanks to the 5 brothers, gentlemen of the men's tribe, 99.8, how lonely it is to be invincible, hehe, Shenzhen Ming, and SUIFE, for their awards and support. Brothers, a new week is about to begin, and let me see the strong hands of your support. 3 updates today, please recommend, reward, and support. Chapter 94, Venomous Supervisor, build a bonfire. Under the scorching midsummer sun, a magic sound warrior, sweating profusely, carried a few bricks to a wall nearly 2 meters high and 10 meters long. He complained, moving bricks is so tiring. A week ago at this time, I was in the air-conditioned office. Hey, the boss just wanted to build a wall on a whim. What can we do? While they were puzzled by Liu Ming's order, his prestige was so ingrained that they kept their hands moving even as they grumbled about their tiredness. Why does moving bricks feel more tiring than killing monsters? A sturdy magic sound warrior said, pulling up the hem of his soaking shirt to wipe his sweaty forehead. He found that the more he wiped, the more sweat he shed on his face. He sighed helplessly. Everyone else agreed. At that moment, Liu Ming suddenly approached like a supervisor and coldly declared, because those were just free monsters I deliberately slipped through my fingers, so you could kill them and gain experience. He glared at them coldly, seemingly unimpressed with the efficiency of the wall building effort. Those who had paused their work to greet Liu Ming upon his approaching were now embarrassed by his words. Liu Ming's glare only intensified their efforts, speeding up their work. Everyone smiled dryly as they worked, knowing they were only dealing with minor monsters each time. The truly formidable ones were handled by the taller man. But the reality of Liu Ming's words pierced everyone's nerves. Liu Ming wandered around and arrived at another spot. He saw his first ranged class, Liu Zeduo, passing bricks while complaining to the others around him. I'm an archer, a ranged class. I have to climb up and down all the time. It's just as hard work as you melee classes. He climbed a wooden ladder, passing bricks from the pile to his companions, who were laying bricks on a wall already over 2 meters high. Liu Ming immediately offered him a suggestion. You could actually use arrows to suspend a basket of bricks and shoot them up. Do you need a basket? Liu Zeduo was taken aback by Liu Ming's sudden remark. He was supposed to shoot a basket of bricks from below. I didn't expect you to have such a creative mind. Do you know how much effort it takes to shoot an arrow? Let alone one weighing dozens of kilograms. It would be exhausting. It's much easier to just climb up and down and pass bricks. But he knew Liu Ming was always a stickler for his word, and he was genuinely worried he'd ask him to shoot arrows and pass bricks. He watched Liu Ming give him a sheepish smile, quickly descend the wooden ladder, and then climb back up again with a large basket of bricks, looking incredibly energetic. Liu Ming nodded in satisfaction and turned to leave. Even as he was speaking, he seemed to spot another figure slacking off. This time, Liu Ming had caught the portly cook, Jin Sideo. He was pushing a small cart filled with bricks, leaning against a large tree by the roadside, looking almost exhausted. He paused, looking at Luo Yingrun, who was still silently shoveling dirt nearby, and said, all my lunch turned to sugar, and I've digested it all. I'm out of energy, and can't work anymore. With your weight, you'd have digested a ton of food long ago, Liu Ming said, his tone somewhat unkind, as if he was about to kick him if he didn't get up. Seeing this, the fat man suddenly jumped out of his jelly-like slump from the shade of the tree. He stood up, pushed a cart loaded with bricks, and quickly ran to a wall waiting for bricks. Liu Ming, pleased with the fat man's keen eyesight, continued on to the next location. Those of you up there throwing bricks, throw them right. You're already tired enough, and you want to kill me? You're so tired. Why are you just throwing bricks up there? I'm digging a pit and laying bricks down there. Let's switch. 2 men laying bricks and filling the dirt a meter or 2 below the foundation suddenly shouted at the women above, who were in charge of passing bricks down. The women blushed, but dared not speak back. After all, their assigned tasks were relatively easy. A man filling the dirt below, noticing that the sigils in charge of the work were gone, leaped to the ground to let the women above fill in the dirt. Just as his head emerged from the ground, he suddenly saw a figure that frightened him so much that it completely blocked out the sunlight he should have been seeing, casting a large shadow that obscured his entire face. Plop. The man's feet gave way, and he fell into the pit. His voice trembled as he said, Mr. Liu, Mr. Liu, it's too stuffy down there. I need to get some fresh air. Okay, I understand. I've gotten some fresh air now. Keep working. If you need some fresh air again, just tell me. See that telephone pole over there? I'll hang you up there all night. Liu Ming said with a forced smile. For the entire afternoon, Liu Ming's main job was to wander around. If he saw anyone complaining or slacking off, he'd go up and pour down a torrent of spittle. It didn't matter if they died from the poison, they had to work, and they had to work harder. It wasn't until nightfall, when everyone was exhausted, that Liu Ming began to ask everyone to stop their work. Looking at the fruits of his afternoon's labor, Liu Ming's face was filled with satisfaction. At least he felt it was his own work. Without his constant encouragement, these people wouldn't have been so efficient. A 4-meter high, 300 to 400 meter long wall had been erected along the sidewalk across the street from the treehouse plaza, encircling the entire plaza in an arc toward the train station. Thanks to the relentless smelting work of Gong Ruohan and the 2 fiery art spirits, the entire wall shimmered with a crystalline red hue, appearing incredibly solid. Liu Ming, impressive, right? Gong Ruohan suddenly appeared from nowhere, leaping behind Liu Ming and shouting. Liu Ming, snapping out of his satisfied sigh, looked at the girl before him, her face slightly flushed, a few beads of sweat hanging from the tip of her nose, and her expression ready to praise him. He nodded approvingly. Well done. Liu Ming's praise was genuine. He hadn't expected this 15-year-old to possess such perseverance in construction. She had been smelting and building the wall since noon, and had only stopped working when Liu Ming ordered everyone to rest. The 2 equally exhausted fiery art spirits followed her closely, flapping their wings. Hearing Liu Ming's praise, Gong Ruohan's face was filled with joy, and she said hopefully, then, Liu Ming, can you agree to a bonfire dinner for me today? What? Liu Ming was a little confused. Bonfire dinner, bonfire dinner, bonfire dinner. Liu Ming, are you trying to play dumb? Gong Ruohan bared his fangs and stared at Liu Ming threateningly. Okay. Liu Ming nodded and agreed. Yeah, I'll go find that young lady to prepare the bonfire dinner. Gong Ruohan ran happily towards the treehouse plaza where Kei Junran and the others were. Although it was only her first day, she already knew who the chef was. Come here, Liu Ming called out to Liu Huchun, who was walking past with his men. What can I do for you, boss? Liu Huchun hurried over and asked politely. Get some firewood and build a bonfire. Liu Ming ordered. What? Boss? Liu Huchun's expression was the same as Liu Ming's before, also confused. I told you to go get some firewood and build a bonfire tonight. Ask Gong Ruohan, the little craftswoman, for details. Liu Ming explained, before turning and leaving Liu Huchun standing there, bewildered. P.S. Here's a second update. This one's extra thanks to last week's donations from Gentleman Lin of the Men's Tribe, Death Swastika Dream, CCCC 1234, Xiang, and War of the Heavenly Mad Demon. Everyone knows Feng Shui writes on his phone, but his screen broke today. All my writing is on my phone, and I replaced it late at night, so I'm updating now. The third update might be after midnight, so don't wait. Thanks to my 5 brothers, still remembering Jingsheng, 99.8, how lonely the invincible was, hehe, stepping on small fish in the suburbs, and looking up to see next year, for their donations and support. Chapter 95, The Starry Sky, Fire, and Monsters. The area surrounding the treehouse square was previously hushed and silent, as all the monsters drawn to the square by the daytime noise had perished at the claws of the 2 patrolling dragon pets and the giant cat. The starlight and moonlight from the sky filtered through the branches of the treehouse, scattering down to the ground, creating a scene of ethereal tranquility. But when a bonfire erupted in the square, its flames shooting several meters into the air, the stillness was shattered by the howling and roaring of countless monsters drawn to the flames. The roars of monsters from near and far filled the square, a cacophony of inhuman hollow cannibalistic roars that sent shivers down the spines of those gathered around the bonfire enjoying dinner. As the roars grew in intensity and closer, not only did the ordinary people feel a surge of panic, but even several key members of the search team were filled with worry. "Boss, why don't we put out the bonfire?" Marjan spoke first. He feared for everyone's safety if the monsters truly swarmed the square. Liu Chun, the guy who'd been getting a lot of glares for building a bonfire, immediately chimed in. Yeah, boss. It's okay for us to eat in the dark. Just don't attract all the monsters. Gong Ruohan, who was having fun with Kei Junran and a group of other girls around the bonfire, had sharp ears. Upon hearing the two men's pleas, he immediately leaped over with his teeth bared. "What? You want to put out my bonfire? No need," Liu Ming replied calmly, unmoved by Marjan and Liu Chuan's pleas. He'd known the moment he'd agreed to build the bonfire with Gong Ruohan that it would attract monsters. That was exactly what he'd wanted. He slowly stood up, his gaze sweeping across everyone's faces. Those who had some self-preservation skills and the elderly man who had followed him were fine. They didn't show much panic or fear at the approaching roars of the monsters. The ordinary people who had just arrived had already turned pale in the gloomy atmosphere of impending storm. But like penguins huddling together for warmth, they felt safer together than alone, so they could only tremble and dare not move. After all, few could ignore the monsters' roar like Gong Ruohan and still playfully play around the campfire. Seeing the fear on the ordinary people's faces, Liu Ming felt very satisfied. The more frightened they were now, the more shocked they would be later. Liu Ming suddenly realized that having these thousands of laborers today was a great thing. If only his few dozen people had to shovel earth, fill the foundation, and build the walls, it would take at least 3 or 4 days to complete the current workload. Thanks to these thousands of people, it took only an afternoon. So he no longer wanted to send these people to so-called safe spots or zones, but rather to recruit them for his own use. But this was just wishful thinking. What Liu Ming needed was not a group of enslaved laborers, but subordinates who were willing to follow his lead. If things continued as planned, there was no way all of them would remain by tomorrow. He even doubted even half would. Ultimately, these thousands of people felt safer and more reliable in the government army, better able to protect them in the apocalypse. He had staged this monster attack around the bonfire today, wanting them to watch and see if he was truly capable of protecting them. He didn't care about the possibility of a few civilians dying in the attack. Who couldn't tell the difference between hundreds of people leaving for the safe zone and just a few casualties? Of course, if some still refused to change their ways and decided to leave tomorrow, they would have no choice but to run to the safe zone. Amidst the flickering bonfire's glow of fear, terror, and despair, a tide of cannibal corpses, mutants, and mutated creatures surged onto the square, intermingled with demons. The monsters didn't charge the walls, but instead poured in through 2 gaps on the left and right, where the high wall hadn't yet closed, and through a gate, guarded by bloodthirsty sawtooth vines. The monsters pouring in through the gate were instantly ripped apart and devoured by 6 blood vines that had grown to nearly 10 meters in length. Liu Ming then gave the order, all magic seal warriors and professionals, form a human wall to guard against the monsters. Ordinary people inside, stay put. Sumi, take the cat group and Gong Weeksin to block the left opening. Ji Zerong, follow me. As soon as he finished speaking, he drew his Jufeng and charged forward, charging towards the right opening, where the monsters were pouring in the most. Ji Zerong's massive form followed closely behind, followed by a small group of fluttering gargoyles. Bang! As Liu Ming and the surging monsters were about to clash, countless sand and stones flew, the air suddenly becoming murky, and then a khaki-colored behemoth, several sizes larger than Ji Zerong, appeared out of thin air. Ji Zerong had unleashed his sandstorm spirit, having recovered from the previous battle. The khaki-colored behemoth appeared and crushed several monsters beneath its 4 massive claws. With a few thuds, the monsters were crushed into pulp, as if by a heavy truck. The khaki-colored behemoth charged through the horde of monsters, none of which could withstand a single blow. Eventually, the monster circumvented the behemoth and rushed into the square, but most were held back by Liu Ming and Ji Zerong, who stood like gate guards. Even those they couldn't stop were entangled by gargoyles, leaving only a handful to make it onto the square. Even with the small number of monsters charging forward, they still caused a stir among the crowd. They had previously been astounded by the terrifying strength of Liu Ming, Gong Weixin, Ji Zhenrong, and Su Mi, but now they worried about whether the human wall before them could hold off the monsters. Kill. Ma Jian roared, taking the lead as he swung his sword at the two attacking lesser demons. Before his blades even touched the lesser demons' bodies, two soldier spirits materialized from the void behind him. The soldier spirit swung its blade, and the inferior demons were immediately torn apart. Two headless corpses fell to the ground, bleeding profusely. This scene filled ordinary people with a sense of certainty. No one had expected Liu Ming's men to be so inhumanly strong. Ma Jian's attack was a signal, and the surrounding magic seal warriors from all directions then displayed their powers. Han Piaoxu casually fired several dark blue ice arrows, instantly piercing the heads of two ordinary cannibal corpses that were charging towards her. She had successfully transitioned to the spellcasting class of Ice Mage. Lin Mimi, casually scavenging a few grass seeds from a roadside flower bed, sprinkled them on several attacking mutant dogs. When the mutants continued to charge, Lin Mimi cast her emerald green light on the grass seeds, and like a sped up shot in a movie, the seeds instantly expanded into wild, python-like weeds, strangling the mutant dogs. The two combatants beside him immediately rushed forward and hacked the restrained mutant dog to pieces. Lin Mimi had also transitioned to a druid, Gu Yun, seemingly transformed, instantly transformed from a muscular 6 minutes and 10 seconds, 190 centimeters, figure into a giant warrior over 6 feet 2 inches, 210 centimeters, tall, clad in keratin armor. He single-handedly blocked the combined attacks of a pure strength mutant and a swiftness mutant. Liu Huchun, wielding a divinely blessed sword, engaged a fierce battle with a great imp. The blade suddenly shattered after slashing the demon, sending the imp reeling beast into a hornet's nest. Then, countless shattered blades were forcibly ripped from the imp's body by an invisible force, sending it screaming in agony. Like liquid metal, the shattered blades merged into a new sword at the hilt. Liu Huchun decapitated the imp with a single blow. This was a killing move, the Thousand Blades Sacrifice, invented by Liu Huchun after his transition to a warrior, drawing on his ability to control the liquefaction of metal. After obtaining the Thunder Seal, Chu Gang upgraded to a lightning elementalist. He launched bolts of lightning precisely at the more difficult F rank and above monsters. His wife, the Kigan Master Yang Sang, swooped in, dispatching the monsters, which had been charred on the outside and tender on the inside, with a few punches. Yun Fanghua, the Fire Swordsman, who had been upgraded to Fire Swordsman, Fangan, the Steel Knight, who had acquired the Steel Armor Seal, and Luo Ziping, the Swordsman, who had acquired the Sword Key Seal, all displayed near E-rank strength. Like ferocious humanoid beasts, they slaughtered the monsters that slipped through Liu Ming and Gong Weixin's defenses with abandon. However, the combatants numbered fewer than 50, far superior to ordinary men. Even amidst the defenses protecting thousands of men, some monsters inevitably broke through the human wall and charged into the crowd. Fuck! Steel Knight Fangan suddenly yelled. Unexpectedly, a mutant creature, among the several F-rank monsters he had blocked, leaped over his head and charged into the crowd. The mutated beast, its flesh peeling off piece by piece, hung by its tendons. From its ferocious maw, highly corrosive saliva dripped continuously onto the stone slabs of the square, making a sizzling sound that terrified ordinary people. As the mutated beast fixed its bloodthirsty gaze on a man with the words Feng Aging tattooed on his hand, the man screamed in fear, shoved a woman next to him toward the monster, and sprinted toward the back of the square. Nimmer. Startled by the man's shameless behavior, Fangan leaped forward, grasping the mutated beast's tail firmly, and pulling its jaws back from the woman's head. The woman seemed stunned by the sudden shove, frozen in place, unable to move. She muttered in disbelief, "Ah Feng, he pushed me. He pushed me. If you don't leave, I can't hold on." Fangan's face flushed red from both excessive force and anger at the woman's foolishness, but he still held on, gritting his teeth as he spoke. At this moment, the mutant beasts had rushed in, and everyone was retreating in panic. The woman's position was now empty, and no one dared to help her. The situation was precarious. P.S. Here's the third update from yesterday, this one for the Dragon Breeder's second helmsman, Shenmufua and Piadakang. I believe you will forgive me for falling asleep while typing in the early morning, so I'm only just finishing the update now. As compensation, or 3000 word chapter. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96, Deathly Reflection, Awakening of Steelheart. Now, Fangen, a young man barely 20, was mulling over the idea of devouring the woman before him alive. If he were given another chance, he swore he would never pull the mutant's tail. The mutant's brute strength, even at its F level, was no less powerful than many E-rank monsters. God forbid, he was just an early stage F-rank knight without a mount. He was only able to hold it because of sheer force. But now that he had it, how could he let go? A man couldn't say no. Fangen roared, veins throbbing throughout his body as he forcibly pulled the mutant back 2 steps. The still dazed woman, seeing the monster's ferocious head disappear before her, also came to her senses and scrambled back. The mutant tried to chase the food, but Fangen showed no sign of letting it go, clinging to its tail. Intensely enraged, it turned and roared at Fangen, showering him with saliva, a mixture of the stench of its mouth and bits of rotting flesh. Fangen was relentless, seemingly clinging to a principle he wouldn't let go. The moment he let go, the retreating, ordinary people, who he considered to be moving at a snail's pace, would surely suffer heavy casualties. The monster tugged twice, unable to free Fangen, and finally, roaring, turned and bit at him. Seeing this, Fangen breathed a sigh of relief, releasing the monster's tail with one hand. His freed hand was instantly encased in silver grey steel, like a sandbag. Spikes sprouted from the tip of his fist. He met the mutant's raging jaws with a series of fierce punches, shattering the mutant's already rotten flesh into a bloody mess. The mutant, unaware of the pain, merely tilted its head slightly before returning the bite. Fangen suddenly shifted sideways, a silver grey light condensing in his hand. Immediately, a sharp elbow-long javelin materialized from thin air. With a thud, the sharp sound of a weapon piercing through flesh echoed as Fangen launched the javelin with all his might. This was one of the Steel Knight's signature abilities, the Steel Javelin. The javelin plunged directly into the mutant's maw, its spiraling tip spinning continuously. The monster's head was instantly pierced by the close-range attack, its pale brain matter spilling out from the hole, pierced by the steel javelin. The monster's ferocious attack faltered. Just as those concerned about the situation thought they could breathe a sigh of relief, something unexpected happened. Boom. The mutant, larger than a dragon salamander, collapsed to the ground. As Fangen prepared to finish him off, a slimy black shadow leaped from a hole in the monster's rotting scalp and lunged towards him in the face. With astonishing speed, the monster pounds directly on Fangen's head, its straw-like mouth piercing his skull, sending a sharp pain through the eyes of everyone who witnessed it. Fangen collapsed, as if struck by lightning. "Hurry up, help. Captain, are you okay?" Fangen, Little and Z. The chaotic scene also captured Liu Ming's attention. He saw a hideous tentacled creature, resembling a baby, grasping Fangen's head with its tentacles, its straw-like mouth piercing his forehead. His eyes suddenly jumped. "Stop!" Liu Ming shouted as he saw the crowd gathering to forcibly pull the monster free of its grip on Fangen's head. "If you pull it off, Fangen will surely die." Liu Ming recognized the monster as the infamous soul-sucking monster of later generations. Of course, it wasn't a mature, level 4 or higher soul-sucking monster, but a juvenile one. In their larval stages, these monsters thrive by parasitizing and absorbing nutrients from their host. Their sharp spiky straws serve not only as mouthparts for sucking brain matter, but also as the source of their name, the soul suckers. They can penetrate deep into the brains of living beings through this organ, directly siphoning the very souls they plunder. The only way to survive a soul sucker's soul-sucking power is to resist its consuming force with one's own will. Removing the soul sucker by force would result in the extraction of the brain along with the matter, guaranteeing certain death. Move him to a safe place. Life or death is up to fate, Liu Ming declared, as everyone frantically pressed the issue. Fangen, in shock, watched as a sharp straw-like object pierced his head before he lost consciousness. It felt as if he were in a long dream, a vast, devastating mouth emanating an immense suction force that continuously enveloped him. He was struggling against the suction like a survivor riding a broken bamboo raft in the raging waves. He had a premonition that the moment he was swallowed by that big mouth, everything he had, including his soul and memories, would be swallowed up as well. Fangen resisted the suction while cursing. "Brother, do you have to be so ruthless? It's fine if you sucked my brain, but I don't have one anyway. Now you want to eat my soul too?" After cursing, he felt the suction force increase instead of decrease. Fangen became even more angry. "Fuck you, I'm only 18 years old. Are you going to send me to the west? Just suck some of my brain, don't go too far." The suction force became more fierce. Fangen hurriedly used his hands and feet to grab the ground to prevent himself from being sucked away, cursing, "Damn it, the world ended when I took a summer job after the college entrance examination. Finally, I met the boss and became a professional. Am I going to die in your hands today?" Feeling the suction force getting stronger and stronger, he was about to fly out of his hand and into the big mouth. Finally, he panicked. "Brother, can you please not be so cruel? I've been sucked by you for so long that I should have become a fool. Can you stop?" Fangen finally couldn't hold on any longer and was sucked into the air towards the big mouth. He left his last shout in the air. "You think I'm afraid? 18 years later, I'm still a hero." In reality, Fangen's body suddenly convulsed violently, startling the demon warrior guarding him. But deep within his body, unseen by others, a silver grey glow swirled around Fangen's heart, followed by a rapid spread of silver grey energy. In an instant, Fangen's entire body was enveloped in a silver grey glow, like a lifelike silver statue. Suddenly, the demon warrior beside Fangen felt a heaviness in his chest, a dizziness in his head, and a weight, as if a mountain had weighed down his body, making him unsteady. This sensation quickly spread, and the air around Fangen felt as heavy as mercury. The soul-sucking monster larva lying in front of Fangen was particularly noticeable, its body twisting and turning, as if squeezed by an invisible force. A wave of invisible energy swept across the square, causing ordinary people to stagger, as if struck by a heavy blow. Even Liu Ming, far away, felt the wave. His expression changed, and he quickly abandoned the monsters surrounding him and leaped to Fangen's side. He stretched out his scollard hand, firmly grasping the soul-sucking monster, which had been squeezed several sizes smaller. He then swung his sharp blade across its mouthparts, severing its most vital organ. The monster thrashed violently in excruciating pain. The strange energy wave surged even more violently, lashing out at the crowd, sending many ordinary people collapsing. But when Liu Ming plunged his sharp blade into the monster's head, the creature finally died, and its characteristic psychic attacks, which felt like a mental assault, ceased. He casually discarded the creature's corpse to the ground. He looked at his men, now reduced to statues by a silver grey energy, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. Steelheart Awakening. This was one of the most famous awakenings of later generations, occurring only with a very small chance in Steel Knights. Known as a class awakening, this unique awakening occurs only within a certain inherited class, allowing that class to complete its awakening and evolution. For example, a Grand Knight evolves into a Grand Knight Commander, a Grand Archer into a Sharpshooter, a Swordsman into a Swordsman, and so on. This includes the Steel Knight before us evolving into a Steel Hood Knight. When the mouthparts on his forehead were removed, Fangen was instantly enveloped in a rich silver grey light. When the grey light dissipated, and he reappeared before Liu Ming, his attributes had changed dramatically. Evolver, Fangen level 1 E-class, Steel Hood Knight, Intermediate class, Class Potential, Level 4 SSS abilities, Steel Hood Amulet, Steel Hood Joust Talents, Molten Steel Armor, Steel Hood Lance Specialties, Steel Hood Domain, 1000 Spears of Steel Festival, Taming Steel Beast Mount Description. Powerful knights who have grasped the mysteries of steel and the essence of the Steel Hood. As leaders of the Steel Knights, The Steel Hood Knights often attack at the forefront of battle. Their lances are their unshakable banners, their javelins are the weapons they use to pierce the enemy, and their steel hoods are their very souls. PS. First update here. Programmer Fengsha spent the whole day developing a crappy program on a crappy computer in a crappy company for that meager salary, so he really has no time to write today, and even no time to hang out in the group chat. If you don't believe me, go ask everyone in the group chat. I owe you 2 updates today, and I will pay you 1 update each tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Programmers are already a high-risk profession in the world of sudden death, and the equally high-risk profession of being a failed writer. No one wants Fengsha to die suddenly from overwork. Fangan is a supporting role for 99% of the kids in the group, a flower of the motherland who never withers under the torture of the King of Force. Chapter 97 Bloodstained Steel Spear. Evil Dragon appears. Seeing Fangan leap up from the ground, brimming with energy, his forehead skull now completely healed, barely visible, Liu Ming's eyes were quizzical. 10 years later, the Steel Hood Knight, a knight class with only rank 4 potential, was renowned throughout Wuling. This was largely due to the fact that one of the 16 peaks of Wuling had advanced to the pinnacle of the Steel Hood Knight system, the legendary Steel Hood Throne Knight. Liu Ming, leader of the Wuling Safety Zone's Steel Crown, commanded thousands of Steel Knights and other Steel Hood Knight professionals, known as the Steel Knight Legion. Their combat prowess rivaled that of the first demon hunting group, the Sandstorm Demon Hunting Legion. Furthermore, this legendary saint seemed to have a special fondness for Steel Knights, recruiting nearly all of Wuling's Steel Hood Knight class members. Similarly, the Steel Crown, a large organization led by the legendary knight Liu Ming, vice president of the Wuling City Demon Hunting Association, was a significant force throughout the Wuling Safety Zone. I remember a brief collaboration with a rank 3 Steel Knight captain during a Demon Hunter Guild bounty mission in my later life. Their incredible survivability and formidable destructive power, despite the torrent of energy, left a lasting impression on me. I even remember the names of the various classes within the Steel Hood Knight system. Rank 2 Steel Knight, Rank 3 Steel Knight Captain, Rank 4 Steel Hood Knight, Rank 5 Steel Hood Grand Knight Captain, Rank 6 Steel Hood Crown Knight, Rank 7 Steel Hood Throne Knight. Apparently, one of the 63 Steel Hood fortresses was a Steel Hood Crown Knight. This highly integrated class, combining both defensive and lethal capabilities, has become a highly sought after profession in later generations. Steel Knights are common, with over 1,000 in the Wuling City safe zone alone, and the majority of them serve under the command of the Steel Hood Throne Knight. Despite its popularity, advancing to the higher level Steel Hood Knight class is incredibly difficult. Not only is the divine grace for Steel Hood Knight advancement incredibly rare, but the class awakening from Steel Knight or Steel Knight Grandmaster to Steel Hood Knight requires mastering the Steel Hood, a feat only achieved by those with near utter obsession. I never imagined that this young man, whom I had conveniently appointed search leader upon seeing him master a high-level magic seal ability, would have such potential. The Steel Hood Knight's strength stems from the perverse Steel Hood Domain, a special ability formed by their iron will. The ultimate Steel Hood Domain can solidify the surrounding space into near iron. Aside from the Steel Hood Knight himself, anyone else within the Steel Hood Domain is subject to abnormal constraints, making even truly damaging attacks as difficult as piercing through layers of homogeneous steel. Of course, that's a level only achieved by a 5th level Steel Hood Grandmaster. Currently, Fangan has mastered only the most basic Steel Hood Domain. Even with this, he's become the primary tank, aside from Jizui Rang and Sandstorm Soul. Even Gu Yun, a professional shield guard, wasn't even on the same level of defense as him. Fangan's first words, after waking from his awakening evolution were, "Boss, are you dead too? Are we all wiped out?" Liu Ming gave him a cold look and said, "You're still alive. Didn't I get eaten by that giant mouth?" Fangan's eyes nearly bulged out in disbelief. "I'm really still alive. I wasn't dreaming. I told you not to be scared." Fangan then spotted the monster's corpse nearby and finally confirmed that he hadn't encountered his boss in the underworld, but was truly present in the human world. When he saw the monster's mouthpiece, still in Liu Ming's hand, piercing his skull, a look of sudden realization dawned on him. He exclaimed gratefully, "I was wondering how I'd survived being eaten. It turns out you saved me, boss." Boss, you truly are my guiding light, my beacon when I'm lost. He was even more thrilled to think that it was the boss he had always admired who had saved his life. Liu Ming's face twitched at this flattery. If this guy hadn't miraculously blocked the soul-sucking monster's attack and, like a fleeting moment of life, suddenly awakened his class, suppressing the soul-sucking monster's brain-draining behavior with his surviving instinct, he would never have been able to save him. Even if he had been saved, he would most likely have been nothing more than a brainless idiot. But since even the person himself considered him his savior, it was only natural that he should accept the favor. He then nodded nonchalantly and said, "No need to thank me. You're lucky to be alive." He then turned and rushed towards the already weakened right-hand gap. Fangen followed Liu Ming towards the gap. He clenched his right hand, and countless silver grey rays rushed out from the void, instantly forming a silver heavy spear over 2 meters long in his hand. He gripped the spear with both hands, and with a sweep of the tip, a nearly 2-meter tall swift mutant was sent flying dozens of meters away like a golf ball struck by a club. The 2 mutants that followed, charging towards Fangen from both sides, struggled before they could even get close, as if weighed down by an invisible force of gravity. They were easily pierced through the skull, and killed one by one just 3 or 4 meters away. Liu Ming was also struck by this scene, and couldn't help but recall the formidable steel knights who had repeatedly given the sandstorm demon guards a hard time. As he swung his sword at a horned demon, Liu Ming muttered under his breath, "What a well-rounded class with abnormal abilities." His opponent was a mid-level D-rank horned demon, extremely gifted in combat, and one of the strongest monsters tonight. In sheer strength, it surpassed even the E-rank Liu Ming, but Liu Ming didn't wrestle with it. Instead, he relied on the sharp edge of his absolute blade and the strange attacks of his scholared hand to quickly subdue it. When Liu Ming slashed at the horned demon's sturdy arm with his sword again, the demon suddenly erupted in rage, its demonic tattoos thrashing like a living creature. As the tattoos writhed, the demon's size suddenly swelled, its strength overwhelming Liu Ming. Horned demon's rage. Liu Ming muttered at the sight, his right hand suddenly ablaze with pale flames, ready to swiftly finish off the horned demon, whose power had surged due to his innate ability. Just then, a winged demon suddenly swooped down from the roof of a house, its claws spread, clawing at Liu Ming's head. Liu Ming frowned at the sudden appearance of the winged demon. He could only sidestep to deal with it, leaving a gap in his defense. The horned demon, naturally, would not miss this opportunity and lunged forward. As the demon roared and lunged at Liu Ming, Fangen, not far behind him, suddenly hurled a silver grey javelin. Compared to his previous javelin, Fangen's steel-hit knight-leveled steel-hit javelin now featured a mysterious silver pattern on both its tip and shaft. At the moment of throwing, the pattern on the end of the spear suddenly lit up, and a stream of air like a shockwave surged out, and the speed of the spear immediately increased by a little, shooting straight towards the horned demon. At the moment the spear was thrown, the horned demon stretched out 2 arms as thick as pillars and firmly grasped the attacking steel-heart spear. At this time, the spear was still spinning in a spiral in the palm of the horned demon's hand, and it was not stopped for a while. Fangen took a few steps, straightened the spear, and stabbed it straight at the face of the horned demon. The horned demon could only drop the spear and quickly dodge, but was still pierced by the spear tip in the shoulder. A large piece of flesh and blood was instantly picked up, and the demon's blood dyed the spear tip dark red. Well done. Liu Ming dealt with the winged demon with ease. Seeing Fangen's performance, he turned his head and praised him. Fangen was so excited he stuttered, thank you, boss. I'll try my best." This was the first time he'd been praised by the boss in such a long time. To be praised by the man he admired most, the ironclad straight man, was as thrilling as knowing his haphazard career had evolved. He thrust his spear forward with all his might, the tip of the spear like a frantic venomous snake, stabbing the already wounded horned demon repeatedly and relentlessly. "Haha, you're such a fool." Before he could finish his words, Liu Ming, who was dealing with the winged demon, was stunned, as if Fangen had just woken from a coma and learned he wasn't dead. At that moment, a sinister and commanding voice echoed within him. "Humble mortal, I'm the legendary Holy Dragon Ao Shao. P.S. Here comes the first update. Dragon Breeder has almost reached its 100th chapter. It seems Feng Shui is heading from a new failure to a long-term one. At this moment, only requests for recommendations, rewards, and support can comfort me. Chapter 98 Ao Shao's Wish, Dragon Blood Oath. At that moment, the magical photo containing the redemption of the evil dragon, resting quietly in his arms, glowed continuously. After borrowing the magical photo from Gong Weixin, he had stored these valuable divine favors within it, so he could carry them with him. Liu Ming was stunned for a moment after hearing the voice. This mysterious voice claiming to be the legendary Holy Dragon must be the evil dragon from Redemption of the Evil Dragon. But the description said this evil dragon was only a legendary creature. Why did it claim to be legendary? Was it a bluff? After you've gone through so many trials, I've decided to let you fulfill my wish. What a bunch of trials. I've only had this quest item less than 5 days ago. Okay. Liu Ming grumbled inwardly as he fought off the winged demons that kept gliding and swooping down. Go, mortal. Subdue 7 companions with transcendent potential and above, and swear a dragon's blood pact with them to renounce betrayal. You will receive my gift. Obtain one of the 6 wishes for the quest Redemption of the Evil Dragon. When the evil dragon Ao Shao was a young dragon, he had 7 companions who adventured with him. However, after straying into a remote area, they were successively devoured by the hungry evil dragon. The day after devouring the last companion, the evil dragon escaped the remote area. For many years thereafter, the evil dragon felt guilty about the 7 companions he had eaten. He often wondered if he had endured just one more day, perhaps the last companion would have survived. One of the evil dragon's wishes is for the one who possesses dragon blood and can perform the dragon's blood pact to subdue 7 companions with transcendent potential, since all 7 companions are transcendent beings, to reconcile his deep regret for the 7 companions who were eaten. The series of voices and messages left Liu Ming baffled. Wasn't this supposed to be a stronger in his lifetime series? He had unwittingly triggered the quest clue for this special wish item. Could it be that, as a dragon keeper, he had undergone numerous dragon bloodline enhancements, possessing a trace of dragon blood, or perhaps it was because his subordinate, Xiran, had, by chance, awakened into a 4th level, extraordinary steelhead knight. After fruitless contemplation, Liu Ming simply abandoned the idea. His right arm suddenly extended over 10 meters, and a crimson hand unexpectedly grasped the tip of the winged demon's fleshy wings, which were circling low, searching for an opportunity to strike. Boom. The winged demon plummeted to the ground under the force, like an overloaded helicopter. The falling demon struggled fiercely, and just as Liu Ming's crimson hand was unable to restrain it, it suddenly unleashed 7 or 8 crimson rays, each as thick as his arm, that instantly pierced through the demon's 2 pairs of fleshy wings. The fascia of the wings had been pierced, and the demon's struggles finally subsided. Liu Ming immediately charged forward, his sword drawn. Arriving at the spot where the winged demon had fallen, he raised his absolute blade, coated in crimson molten lava, high in the air, and slashed down the winged demon's ferocious head. Across the way, Fangen was still engaged in a back and forth exchange of blows with the Horn Demon. The D-rank Horn Demon was clearly superior to the E-rank Steelhead Knight in both strength and speed, but Fangen's perverted Steelhead domain had suppressed it to the point where its combat power was on par with his own. For a moment, Fangen held his own against the Horn Demon, wounded by his own strike. Just as Fangen swept his spear, about to engage the swiftly charging Horn Demon head-on, the incredibly sharp tip of the absolute blade suddenly appeared, piercing the back of the Horn Demon's skull. The Horn Demon roared in fury and agony. Fangen seized the opportunity, stabbing the Horn Demon nearly 10 times with the tip of his spear, instantly turning it into a hornet's nest. Over a dozen fist-sized bloody holes appeared on the demon's sturdy body. The demon roared in despair before collapsing, its dark red blood spilling all over the ground. After the 2 of them combined to slay the 3D level mutants surrounding Zilirong, the strongest monsters in the right-hand gap were completely slain. The remaining monsters were quickly slain by Liu Ming and his men, like leaves swept by a gust of wind. As the defenders of the right-hand gap joined in, the monsters in the left-hand gap, the gate, and the scattered areas of the square were also eliminated one by one. Marjun, Gong Weixin, lead the men to clean up the battlefield and treat the wounded. Fangen, follow me. As the last monster collapsed at his feet, Liu Ming glanced at the people still gathered around the blazing bonfire. gave his instructions, and then turned and left. Although the attacking monsters were numerous this time, numbering in the thousands, most were kept outside the square, resulting in few casualties. Only a few of his own magic seal warriors and professionals were injured, and even Fangen, who he had thought certain death, miraculously survived. Ordinary people weren't so lucky, with only 3 or 4 killed. However, this loss was negligible for a group of thousands. Even during the days when Gong Weeksin led them in the underground garage shelter, far more people died each day. Therefore, no one was surprised. Aside from the relatives and friends of the deceased, there was little sadness. Instead, every survivor expressed an expression of fervor and shock. Liu Ming and the Magic Seal Warriors now seemed to them like legendary guardian deities, endearing and charming. During their time in the underground garage shelter, everyone knew Gong Weeksin was powerful, the primary force protecting everyone, and the only one possessing the supernatural power to withstand the powerful monsters. But no one had a direct understanding of her true strength. Tonight, under the glow of the bonfire, the inhuman strength of Liu Ming, Gong Weeksin, the professional Magic Seal Warriors, and even Sumi, Zhenirong, the giant cat, the bloodvine, and the gargoyle completely overturned and deeply shocked their perceptions of peace from just a few days ago. A veneration for the strong and a primal passion for power surged among the survivors. If I could possess such immense power, would I still be afraid of monsters? I've never heard of the government military possessing such inhuman strength. If I go to a safer place, will I still have access to such extraordinary power? Fuck it. I'll find out tomorrow. If I have a chance of possessing such power, I won't go to the government military. Eyes filled with ambition and hope gleamed around the bonfire in the night. The bloody battle under the moonlit sky seemed to have changed many people's minds, and this night was destined to be a sleepless night for countless people. Meanwhile, Liu Ming had already led Fangen into the treehouse villa. You know you're no longer the lowly steel knight you used to be, right? Liu Ming spoke first, breaking the silence. Judging by Fangen's flushed face, he probably wouldn't be able to utter a single word until dawn. I know, boss. Thanks to you for saving me, I was able to awaken and evolve. Fangen naturally attributed the credit for his class awakening to Liu Ming. Liu Ming nodded without embarrassment. It's also due to your own potential and talent. Fangen replied with apparent delight. Boss, you're so kind. Liu Ming was speechless. You're so kind, so kind. You awakened entirely on your own merits. I have nothing to do with it. But the conversation couldn't be interrupted, so he continued. I wonder what your plans are? What? What plans? Fangen clearly couldn't follow Liu Ming's train of thought. Just asking where you've decided to go in the future. Have you ever considered leaving here for the safe zone or somewhere else? Liu Ming didn't want to waste time on him and said bluntly. Fangen's face changed at this, but without a moment's hesitation, he replied with a determined and somewhat excited expression. Boss, I'm staying here, not going anywhere. You helped me rescue my parents yesterday, and they are still with everyone. Everyone's always been so caring towards me, and my teammates never look down on me because I'm young. Not to mention, if it weren't for you, I'd be dead tonight, let alone awakening. So I'm staying here to protect my parents, protect everyone, and brave this apocalypse with you, boss. As Fangen spoke, his tone lost none of his earlier casualness. Instead, he spoke with an incomparably solemn, resolute, and determined spirit. Liu Ming nodded silently. He also understood why this seemingly 18-year-old boy could awaken a heart of steel that required sheer determination. Without further ado, he took out the evil dragon's redemption. Conclude the dragon blood oath. Liu Ming spoke slowly, addressing the dragon horn. P.S. Here's a second update. This one was added thanks to the tips from 99.8, Gentleman Len of the Men's Tribe, Chen Dao Dao, Chen Miang Jiu and LV Fengson, and the Invincible King G. Thanks to 99.8 and Jin Iu Xiling for their tips and support. Thanks also to 99.8 for the referral red envelope. Chapter 99, Illusory Will, Evil Dragon Curse Power. As soon as he finished speaking, black thread suddenly emerged from the dragon's horn, piercing his skin and extending deep into his heart. Then, streams of dark red blood were drawn from his heart by the threads. A black ball of light, shimmering with a multicolored sheen, slowly flew out from the dragon's horn. The light twisted and distorted in midair, eventually transforming into a black talisman. The talisman instantly split in two. One talisman, one large, the other small. The large one flew toward Liu Ming's brow, while the smaller one flew toward Fangen. Looking at Fangen, who looked puzzled, Liu Ming said, "Don't resist. Let it fly into your brain." Fangen immediately relaxed, not daring to resist. As the talisman entered his brain, a message appeared. Dragon blood oath. The oath stipulates that you must never betray your companions. This was an ancient oath signed by descendants of the dragon race, paid for with dragon blood. Anyone who violated the oath would be struck back by the curse of the dragon of resentment, with the force ranging from shattered bones to utter destruction. Fangen, grumbling to his fullest, couldn't help but think, what's the point of shattered bones or utter destruction? Isn't it all death? The same thought crossed Liu Ming's mind. Just as Liu Ming was about to retract the dragon horn, the mysterious, enchanting voice echoed again. "Very well, humble mortal. I didn't expect you to fulfill 1/7 of one of my 6 wishes so quickly. This is my gift to you." As the words fell, a black scale, roughly the size of 2 palms, slowly fell from the air into his hand. This was the scale of the evil dragon, a dragon scale imbued with the pure primordial energy and true dragon will of the 6th rank SSS level evil dragon Ao Shao. The moment this mysterious evil dragon scale appeared, Liu Ming felt a sense of urgency and devouring desire, much like Sumi had felt when she first saw the phantom speed dragon's dark heart. He dismissed Fangen with a hoarse voice, "You go out first." As soon as Fangen left, Liu Ming rushed back to his treehouse bedroom, shutting off his 5 senses and opening his 6th dimension. Like a man who had been trudging through the desert for 7 days and 7 nights, hungry and thirsty, suddenly finding a jar of clear water, he frantically absorbed the evil dragon energy from the evil dragon scales. As the first strands of the inky black evil dragon energy entered his body, a violent chemical reaction erupted with the Qingming energy within it, the pale blue energy instantly transforming into a dark green, like a drop of ink in water. The dark green Qingming energy shed its original rich, lingering quality, transforming from a swimming fish into a raging dragon. Strands of dark green energy condensed into dark green tentacles, dancing through the air like wild pythons. Liu Ming felt as if he were standing before a cliff whipped by a fierce wind, his clothes rustling. Strands of evil dragon energy rapidly merged with the Qingming energy within him, rapidly transforming the pale blue energy within him into a dark green. When all the Qingming Yuan Qi within his body had transformed into a dark green, a significant portion of the evil dragon Yuan Qi still remained within the evil dragon scales. At this point, Liu Ming's insight revealed that, in addition to the 3 main characteristics of Qingming Yuan Qi heaviness, lingeringness, and corrosiveness, the 4th and 5th characteristics emerged, brutality and evil fire. A closer look revealed that each dark green tentacle formed from Qingming Yuan Qi was enveloped in a faint, transparent black flame. The flame seemed to possess no warmth at all. However, Liu Ming could sense a strange destructive energy within the flames. If this violent, twisted energy were sufficient, it could potentially exert an effect even greater than that of the pale flame demon seal. Although he felt his entire Yuan Qi transformed by the mysterious power of the evil dragon Yuan Qi, acquiring its 4th and 5th characteristics, Liu Ming did not cease drawing Yuan Qi from the dragon scales. Instead, he accelerated his flow. Strands of the pitch black evil dragon Yuan Qi transformed into a tide of energy, continuously flowing into Liu Ming's body. Liu Ming's total energy, initially nearing late E level, was rapidly increasing. In a matter of moments, he officially surpassed the threshold. Even after reaching late E level, the rate of increase in his energy remained undiminished, continuing its relentless surge. 1.27, 1.28, 1.29. Once Liu Ming's energy reached the pinnacle of E level, the rate of increase finally slowed, and the energy within the scales became increasingly diluted. Immediately, Liu Ming channeled all his energy into countless tiny tentacles, sweeping towards the remaining energy within the scales. Strands of dragon energy, along with the remaining dragon will, were drawn from the scales by the tentacles. Once the last remaining dragon energy and will were extracted, the tentacles acted as if they had bound a true dragon. The dragon's primordial energy, driven by its will, surged wildly, instantly breaking free from its restraining tentacles. Like a ferocious dragon finally freed from its clutches after thousands of years of suppression, it soared into the sky outside the window. Roar. A resounding dragon roar suddenly echoed above Liu Ming's treehouse, shocking everyone still cleaning up the battlefield in the treehouse square to a pale paleness. Some ordinary people, standing close enough, were so frightened they nearly stumbled and fell. A pitch black dragon, hundreds of meters long, coiled endlessly above Liu Ming's treehouse. But it hovered for only a few breaths, and just as everyone prepared to charge, it vanished into thin air, a mirage. Above the treehouse, countless energy showers, invisible to the naked eye, rained down from the sky. All of Liu Ming's primordial energy surged out, transforming into countless tentacles that instantly swept away the energy, transformed from the evil dragon's primordial energy that fell from the sky, leaving not a single drop to fall. This energy surged frantically into Liu Ming's body. Bang! Finally, a sound like a breakthrough echoed, like a barrier being broken through. 1.30. Finally D-rank. Feeling his strength suddenly surge several times stronger, Liu Ming couldn't help but twist his bones and let out a sigh of joy. His basic attributes, under the influence of his insight ability, had now transformed into the following information. Evolver, Liu Ming energy level, 1st level D-rank occupation, Dragon Breeder career potential, 2nd level SSS rank, 5th level seal, 7th level SSS rank, abilities, Dragon Vein evolution, telepathy, Dragon Might taming, insight, mythical touch, evil dragon mantra talents, Dragon bloodline transition, Dragon Vein strengthening. All creating communication specialties, affinity, persuasion, Dragon speech and other ability. Liu Ming was surprised to see the additional evil dragon mantra in the ability information. With a flip of his right hand, a 2-finger wide, 1-finger long, jet black talisman appeared in his palm. Liu Ming waved his hand, and with a thud, the black talisman launched forth like a token, creating a token-shaped dent half an elbow deep in the bedroom's hardwood floor. Wooden debris scatter around the dent. With a thought, Liu Ming's dark green King Ming Yuan key surged, condensing dozens of talisman tokens behind him, like cannonballs poised for release, awaiting his command. Combined with the destructive power of the previous evil dragon spell, Liu Ming feared that these dozens of tokens would rip the entire bedroom apart, as if blasted by artillery fire. He quickly dispersed the talisman tokens and reabsorbed the Yuan key energy contained within them. P.S. Here comes the 3rd update. This is the first time 2 updates have been uploaded simultaneously. This update is dedicated to the 3rd leader of this book, the gentleman of the gentleman tribe. Good night everyone. Hahaha. I've paid off my debts today, and I can finally loudly ask for recommendations, tips, and support. I also want to say sorry to my brothers. The number of chapters was wrong before, because I got confused when reading on questions reading. If you count Feng Shi's words there, it is 102 chapters, but if you don't count the words, it is now 99 chapters. The previous one has been changed. Chapter 100, The Secret Book of Yuan Key, Gift of a Famous Sword. Liu Ming didn't know the reason for the emergence of his new ability, the Dragon's Curse power, but seeing its physical destructive power rivaling armor-piercing rounds alone, he lit up with delight. Furthermore, the Dragon's Curse power clearly had other properties, as evidenced by the eerie black smoke-like energy swelling around the pit. By comparison, while the Scarlet Rays were also a ranged attack, equally powerful and even significantly more penetrating, they also consumed significantly more energy. With his current amount of energy, the dozens of talisman tokens condensed from the Dragon's Curse power he had just used up less than a tenth. In other words, he could easily fire off hundreds of powerful armor-piercing talisman tokens. If he'd fired hundreds of Scarlet Rays, he'd likely have already exhausted his energy and been completely exhausted. He just didn't know the Dragon's Curse power's destructive radius. If its maximum attack range was comparable to the Scarlet Rays, then his ranged attack capability would be far more than just a new ability. It would have been at least doubled. If he were to encounter the winged demon again, he probably wouldn't even need to restrain it with the Scarlet Hand before killing it. He could simply unleash dozens of dragon power blasts, and the winged demon would be blasted into a pulp if it couldn't react quickly enough. 7 or 8 Scarlet Rays were the limit, and without being able to limit the winged demon's speed, it would be virtually impossible to hit it. It seemed that Scarlet Rays were far inferior to Dragon Power in terms of both attack area and number of blasts. Against large numbers of monsters, or those with a knack for speed, Dragon Power would be far more effective than Scarlet Rays. Just as Liu Ming was looking for a place to test the Dragon Power's attack range and damage radius, a flurry of footsteps reached him from outside the door. Immediately, a group led by Marjan hurried in. Marjan's voice was a bit hurried as he spoke first. "Boss, did you see what just happened?" Liu Ming had already guessed their reason for coming, perhaps because of the phantom formed by the evil dragon's will. However, he didn't bother to explain. He simply replied, "It's okay, let's go down." With that, he led the group down from the treehouse villa. Arriving in the square, Liu Ming's behavior surprised those behind him. He clasped his hands together, and several tokens, darker than the night, appeared before him. With a whoosh, a cannonball-like sound pierced the air. Bang! The black token slammed into the stone tablet inscribed with the words train station in the center of the square. One token after another struck the stone tablet, cracking it completely, and sending fragments of stone shooting out from the cracks. When the 6 or 7 tokens suspended in front of Liu Ming were all released, striking the stone tablet in succession, it finally collapsed into a pile of rubble with a resounding bang, like a brick being repeatedly struck by a giant hammer. Those behind Liu Ming were stunned, especially the archer Liu Zeduo. His own 7 arrows could inflict similar destructive power, but he could never achieve the same effortless devastation as his boss, who shattered the stone tablet with a few casual strikes. To fire 7 arrows of this magnitude, he would have to release them one after another. Trying to fire them simultaneously like these strange tokens was simply impossible. "Boss, what's this?" Liu Zeduo couldn't help but ask. Had his boss switched to some incredible ranged class again? Aren't everyone's classes unique? Liu Ming, tempted to show off his skills in front of his men, replied with a satisfied look, "Just a new ability." Seeing the speechless crowd, Liu Ming asked, somewhat puzzled, "What's wrong?" This question only made everyone's faces even more speechless. "You're asking what's wrong with us? When we first met, you said you were a beast tamer, and then you took up your knife and slashed with more ferocity than a warrior. Just when everyone was getting used to your violent beast tamer style, you returned from a trip to Jialing County with a strange hand, possessing abilities reminiscent of a magician. Your current ranged attack capabilities left even Liu Zeduo, a professional archer, speechless." Finally, Marjan broke the awkward silence with a wry smile. "No, it's nothing. We just think the boss has gotten stronger, and we're all happy for you." Liu Ming sneered inwardly. "Happy? Does happiness in your family mean pain in the ass? Otherwise, how could you explain your pained expressions?" He didn't bother to ask any more questions, and simply led everyone towards the altar. It was better to make the thousands of sacrifices tonight as soon as possible to avoid unnecessary complications. As the crowds in the waiting hall, reeling from a night of terror and preoccupied with thoughts, were suddenly drawn to the lights and movement of the nearby ticket hall, they saw the corpses of monsters being carried into the hall, a narrow space clearly unable to accommodate the thousands of monsters. It felt as if an invisible maw was devouring the corpses, arousing everyone's curiosity. Inside the hall, this was the first time Liu Ming had ever offered so many sacrifices at once, whether in his past or present lives. The appearance of each divine grace brought a constant smile to his face, like a wealthy local farmer tending his harvest fields. These thousands of sacrifices brought a total of 300 to 400 divine graces. Over 30 of these graces alone were for class advancement, while most of them were ordinary classes with potential at the first level. SSS level warriors, archers, magician apprentices, samurai, swordsmen, and bladder masters, and even second level classes were rare. They were able to instantly create 30 or 40 advanced class players, far surpassing the average person. The 6 booklets that appeared in his hands caused Liu Ming's expression to fluctuate. He held the 6 shimmering booklets in his right hand, while his left hand pulled out a mysterious photo from his bosom, from which he pulled out 2 booklets. These were the rewards of his previous sacrifice to secret books of primordial key. Each of these 8 secret books of primordial key represented an opportunity for an evolver to unlock their 6th dimensional perception and begin practicing primordial key. Although they were only grey fragments, meaning they were at most first order SSS level and lacked the white fragments needed to break the second divine gene chain, their value was still invaluable in the early days of the apocalypse. The Fate Sword secret book and the Heart Treasure secret book, like his own Liu Ming secret book, contained subsequent practice content for breaking the 5th genetic chain. This presupposed that he could obtain sufficient sacrifices from the 5-color altar to obtain the subsequent green secret book fragments corresponding to the 5th order. He had many subordinates qualified to practice primordial key, but with only 8 secret books, he faced a dilemma: who to give them to. Gong Weixin and Ma Jun were definitely among those who would be chosen. Jie Shengnan, with her impressive secondary awakening talent, was also a must-see. Fang An, with his Steel Heart Awakening, was a natural fit for the Iron Dome secret book. The remaining 4 volumes posed a dilemma for him. Liu Huchun, Chu Gang, Yun Fanghe, Gu Yun, and Luo Ziping, the 5 original search team leaders who had followed him, wouldn't be suitable if he didn't give them one. After fruitless deliberation, Liu Ming simply let the 5 of them divide the 4 primordial key secret books among themselves. After they decided who would temporarily give up their primordial key cultivation, he would select the most suitable book for each of them. As Liu Ming had anticipated, it was Gu Yun, the uninhibited and generous man, who ultimately gave up the opportunity. He stood by and watched the others, beaming with delight as they held the secret books. After Liu Ming had chosen the primordial key secret books for each of the 8, he took out his renowned sword, Frost Descent, which he had rarely used since acquiring the Scholared Hand, and approached Gu Yun. A flicker of pain crossed his face, and he said to the stunned Gu Yun, "Take it. It's yours from now on." Boss, this is too precious. I don't want it." Gu Yun was stunned. He knew it was one of the boss's swords, and he shook his head like a rattle, refusing to accept it. "I told you to take it. If you shake your head again, I'll chop you down," Liu Ming said in a sinister tone, throwing the frost fall at him. Then, ignoring Gu Yuan's complicated expression, he turned around and began to distribute the divine grace for the job transfer. P.S. Here's the first update, with 2 more to come. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.